Hello everyone. Today I'm going to start discussion about Indian Forest Service mains examination. So as you know, there are two optionals and there are two compulsory papers. One is of course general knowledge and one is general English. So out of that, today I'm going to discuss general knowledge paper. Okay, first of all, you can see the syllabus. So in case of civil service examination, UPSC has given exhaustively what they want from you. Each and every syllabus point is given there. But here, if you see the syllabus of general knowledge, it is just this 4 lines, that's all. Paper is worth 300 marks and it really is a difference maker because one can get 140 marks out of 300 as well as 100 or even below that. So there is 40 marks of difference that can be created in this single paper. So if you look at the syllabus, it just says that knowledge of current affairs, matter of everyday observation and experience, and it also says the scientific aspect. So it clearly states that what they want from you. So this is about scientific aspects. Okay. See, that can be expected from educated person who has not made a special study of it. So basically, this is not a general studies paper; it is a general knowledge paper, which has been highlighted here by the UPSC. And paper includes questions from polity, political system, constitution, history, geography. These are the sections that we'll see. So first section is basically of history and so on. So candidate should be able to answer without any special study. That has clearly been mentioned. But you see, that was true maybe few years before today, because now more and more people who are appearing for forest services mains are those who are also appearing for civil services mains. So questions that are coming here for forest services GK paper are quite similar to GS questions that you get. Maybe a little bit easier, maybe a little bit direct, which you'll see, especially in sections like history or economics. There are very direct questions which you don't usually get in GS papers in UPSC, CSE, right? So, but it has been mentioned here that without any special study, candidates should be able to answer this question. Okay, with that, I think the syllabus is only this. So they have not really explained what you have to study, and that's where you have to gather from previous year questions that what is being asked and what are the areas which we need to focus. Okay, so let us start with history section first. Okay. Yes. So the here I have basically written down what are the areas from which UPSC has asked questions in 2017, 18, 19 and 20, and for 21 I have discussed them in details as we'll discuss. Okay. So you see the repeated themes you can clearly see here. So Bhakti movement is one of the most favorite areas. Mansabdari system of Akbar that you can see here. Here you can see Mughal architecture, right? Here you can see Aurangzeb's decline, Aurangzeb's policies, and was that really the reasons for decline of Mughal empire? Okay. Then there is question on Gandhiji. Then you can see the same. Enlist the things that event that happened from Cripps mission to independence of India. So really, they are just asking you to enlist them. There's no need to analyze, you just have to enumerate them. That was the questions there. Okay. So again, 1857 as a first war of independence, again a very direct question which we may not get in CSE. Okay. Again, another themes, see, Bhakti is here. Okay. Krishna Dev Raya of Vijayanagara, his administration, that's there. Mauryan period, Roman trade, post-Mauryan period. Here again Mughal architecture, here is Mauryan period again, here Chola administration. You see the questions. So they are focusing more on the direct questions on basically various important dynasties, right from Mauryan period to Gupta period to Vijayanagara period, Chola period. So these are Mughals, of course, or the Sultanate period, some important sultans, their policies. So basically these questions are direct. Okay, so you have to prepare it from that angle only. And Ashoka's Dhamma is again one of the most popular themes. Here it appeared. Again in 2021 mains we saw a question on Ashoka. So on the basis of that, I had prepared for myself the important question that I should be, important areas that I should focus on for 21 mains. And yeah, I thought that Gupta's period was again highlight. Bhakti movement, Mughals, Krishna Dev Raya, 1857, rise and fall of Buddhism. Again, Buddhism, you can see that it is one of the hot topics always for UPSC. Okay, so Magadha's rise and fall of Magadha. Why did Magadha become so powerful empire, and so on, and timeline. So because there are questions like enumeration, socio-economic reforms. See, the questions are direct. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. Okay, you can note down this repeated themes. You can analyze yourself for past few years question papers. So let me now clear it up and let us go down. So first question this year was about, what is cultural influence of India or Indian civilization, Indian culture in Indochina Peninsula. So this is, I have discussed these questions. Actually, I have written this answer in very detailed manner. We are not going to write all these things in actual examination, but here I did that. I'm listing all these things because I think that it is important for CSE mains as well and essay papers as well, because you see, what you write in exam is not always what we want to discuss here. Okay, let me clarify that. So in exam, this is in forest service exam, there are two kinds of questions. One is 15 markers and 10 markers. So there are 6 sections. There are 24 questions. So in 3 hours, you have to write 24 questions. In CSE mains, we have to write 20 questions. So you may think that it is less time. So yes, it is a time race against time always, but here you have to write less words. Okay, so basically for 15 markers, you are given 2 pages and you have to write in 200 words, and for 20 markers, for 10 markers, you have to write 125 words. So clearly word count is less and you are given 2 pages for both the things. So for 15 markers also you will get 2 pages, for 10 markers also you will get 2 pages. But you have to be careful that if there is 15 marker question, you have to write it in detail. So you have to fill 2 pages because that's the 200 word indication that on one page, on an average, you can write 80 to 100 words. Okay, but the issue arises with 125 words questions because we have habit of writing more. We have habit of writing 150 or 200 words because in civil services examination, we are habitual to that. So you have to be little bit careful about time here. So you have little less time, and you have to write little less amount of words as well. So you are only supposed, so question will come till here, and so you have only 2 pages to write 200 words for 15 marks. Okay, so there is not a lot you can write. Okay, so you have to be precise here. You have to include, of course, more points and cover as many dimensions as you can. More important is answering the question properly. So for any question, I think there are 3 aspects to it. First is, of course, the context. Okay, so let me write it. Context, content, and structure. Okay, so context is basically means that you have to write what is being asked. Don't write other things. Second is content. So content is always the king. Since we are only having 2 pages here, you don't have luxury of space for 15 marks. So don't, in my opinion, we should not be wasting a lot of our effort on figures or maps. Okay, so one way is in CSE you may want to draw the map of Indochina Peninsula, because that is the question, that what is influence of Indian culture in Indochina. So you may want to do that, but here we should be rather focusing on content, because ultimately it is the content which will give you marks. Okay, and third thing here is the structure. So basically how you present your ideas. Basic structure is, of course, introduction, body, and conclusion. Okay, but the other things like should we draw maps, should we draw diagrams like pie charts or sun diagrams, etc. So that all comes in structure, and it is of tertiary importance. Don't make it a primary thing. Don't start focusing on it. Firstly, you should be answering what is being asked. That should be your goal. And here, understanding the question is of paramount importance, of course. So, okay, let me get back to the question now. So the question was about cultural influence of India in Indochina Peninsula. So firstly, of course, one way to introduce is to tell what is Indochina Peninsula. So basically, these are the countries: Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand. You can draw a map, but again, as I said, there are only 2 pages for 15 marks. So you may want to focus on the content instead. But if you don't have a content, too much content, you can of course draw the map and and try to fill up the all the space. Okay, so basically, why was this influence? So let me give a little bit of brief. So ever since ancient civilization, you know that India is one of the trading hubs. Okay, so from Indus Valley civilization, we have been trading with lot of areas, and Ashoka actually sent uh, for spread of Buddhism. Buddhist monks were sent by Ashoka in all across the world, including this Indochina Peninsula. Okay, so spread of Buddhism is one of the regions. Another is trade. So from first century CE, Indian economy was of course flourishing. Gupta age is known as the golden period for India. So from that times, traders and priests travel. So priests accompanied the traders to spread Indian culture and thought. Okay, so these are some of the reasons, right? I have enlisted them. Buddhism, spread of Buddhism is there. Then Muslim traders for India went there. Chola imperial expansion, imperial Cholas, Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola, they had significant control over entire Indian Ocean, including the Indochina Peninsula. So that was one of the reasons. But India never established colonies as such in in the Indochina Peninsula. So cultural influence was significant. Our culture was accepted there. Okay, and it was more a movement of ideas rather than people. So the question is, see, the cultural influence pucha na. Because we are asked cultural influence, we can talk in terms of tenets of culture. Okay, so I have enlisted how it happened. Okay, so you can note it down. So language. Firstly, our Sanskrit language was taken there by priest, Buddhist, and Hindu priest. Many of the words that are used even today are taken from Sanskrit. So that is being mentioned. Then this theory of kingship, that we have this concept of God, king as a god, which we can theory of kingship, god king, or so that those native rulers invited priests, Buddhist and Hindu priests, to legitimize their rulers. Uh, to legitimize their rule, as well as the religion spread. You can have mentioned many points here. So Indian deities were readily accepted with local spirits. Uh, so spread of many of the Indian gods, temples, Shiva and Vishnu temples are many there. I have mentioned few here. So Borobudur temple is there, right? Angkor Wat is there. So here carvings that are similar to our Konark temples. So then syncretic culture is evident because in monasteries, Hinduism, Buddhism, all Muslim wedding rituals are still followed. Again, one of the important points you can use as example, which enrich your answer, is that see the Garuda. Garuda, as you know, is the vehicle of Hindu god Vishnu, as per our mythology. So their Indonesian Airlines is called Garuda. See, it is the name of Indonesian Airlines. Again, there are other things I mentioned. So Mahabharata monument is there, that is exhibited in Central Park of Jakarta, Indonesia. See, so again, monasteries are there. Other examples, so cultural tenets, you see food culture. So our rice and curry based diets are similar from Eastern India and Indochina Peninsula. Then there is puppetry. So you know Odisha, there is shadow puppetry, which is very famous, which you study for prelims as well, which is Ravan Chaya. We have similar puppets there as well. So themes are there from Ramayana and Mahabharata. Ramayana and Mahabharata actually is very famous there. The literature I have mentioned. So local adaptations of Ramayana and Mahabharata were taken. So there are like texts like Seri Rama or Ramkir or Ramayana Khmer in Cambodia. Sculptures are there like Gupta sculpture. Clothing is there. So kings, so Indian clothes like silk, cotton was in demand. So kings wore Indian made silk because these Muslim silks were very famous for exporting it. again, and woven textiles were worn by common people. So you can see multiple dimensions here, and I only you see you can't write all these in 200 words, but I'm just here enlisting them for your reference. I've done some research. I also was not able to enlist all of them, of course. Some of them you can try to include, but if you don't know the answer, it is better to divide your answer. So what could be the influence of Indian culture there? So you can talk in terms of tenets of Indian culture, which are some of these: so language, Ayurveda, literature, food, and puppetry, etc., etc. Literature, yes. So sculpture, clothing, all these things you can talk about, so that your answers will be multidimensional. Okay, so but you have only 2 pages here, so be fast about it. You have about 9 minutes for it. So that thing you must be able to keep in mind. Okay, then let me move to question number 2. It was about Sher Shah Suri, the king who ruled India, or who ousted Emperor Humayun, and ruled at least northern part of India from 1540 to 1545. He was there only for 5 years, but he was one of the most influential kings in terms of his administration and his military prowess. And that's exactly what was the question. It was about Sher Shah Sur was as militarily genius as Babur and as administratively genius as Akbar. I have just shortened this question. It was basically asking what are the military, how was he the military genius, and how was he the administrative genius. So you can divide your answer simply in terms of these two things. In introduction, you can write about, if you know the period when Sher Shah Sur ruled. So he was an Afghan. So he ruled from 1540 to 1545 after defeating Humayun in Battle of Chausa and Kannauj. If you remember these battles, it's good. It tells the examiner that you know something extra, some specifics. You have studied the medieval history. If you don't, okay, that's fine. But timeline is always important in history. That gives context. So he ousted Humayun. He defeated Humayun in these two battles. So that again, that could be one of the points in your military genius part of the answer as well. So there are two parts to this answer. It's again a 15 marker. You have to write 7 points here, 7 points there, or 5 there. That should be enough. Okay. So I have mentioned this. So how was he military genius? So of course he firstly defeated Humayun. He expanded his empire. Then one of the important things he did was because he won battles over Humayun with his army, with his military. He focused a lot on them. So he was personally involved in their training, in their recruitment, in their salaries. He paid them in cash. But the generals or nobles or feudal lords, he paid in jagirs. Okay, so soldiers were paid in cash. So he was personally invested in their employment, training, discipline, payment of salaries. And to avoid cheating by feudal lords, he brought back the system of Dag and Chehra, which was started earlier by Alauddin Khilji. So Dag was basically branding of horse, so that there is no miscalculation, and Chehra was description of the soldiers in the army. So he many times personally interviewed these soldiers, and there was each soldier's face was described in detail, and there was record kept of all those. Okay, so there was Dag and Chehra system, so that nobles cannot fool him. He had very strong spy system, of course, because in such an empire you need to have such a system. And Sher Shah was very centralizing ruler, so all the powers were concentrated in him, and you can write that in his administrative genius part. So which is basically there was central administration, provincial and local administration, but again the power was concentrated within him. So he was tolerant king. He had Hindus in administration as well. He expanded nobility. Earlier the nobility was only about Turkish rulers or Turkish origin. Now since he was Afghan, there are now many Afghans who were counted in nobility. So he expanded nobility. Then important thing was in his revenue system. So land revenue, he brought in Zapti system, which was again designed by Raja Todermal, who designed Akbar's revenue system as well, which was based on his Sher Shah's revenue system only. So you can see the standard The land measurements, land was measured, qualities were assessed, and then the land revenue was charged accordingly. So standardization currency, the rupiah, that standardization of silver currency and silver currency called rupiah was happened in Sher Shah's tenure. Then agriculture loans he provided, trade and infrastructure. He built the Grand Trunk Road from Sonargaon to Peshawar, and yes, he built sarais, postal sarais were basically for traders. When they traveled, these are kind of rest houses. Okay, you can write another point that security was provided from dacoities, etc., to traders as well. So that was about it. So again, these are the 15 markers questions which you are supposed to write in 200 words. So 2 pages you can fill properly. So there are many points. I think these are enough points to cover it. Third question was again you see the repeated thing. Ashoka. Here again, if you see the Sher Shah, administration of different empires or important rulers is again one of the favorite themes of UPSC in forest services examination especially. Last year there was question on Maurya period. Before that there was Krishnadev Raya's administration. So you should prepare, like next year you may be preparing about Shivaji Maharaj's administration. You can prepare about administration of Gupta's, administration of Ashok was there, already asked, but you can still prepare. So you have to identify the themes again, because see here they are highlighting that this is a general knowledge paper. They don't really expect you to have deep historical insights or something like that. They just want you to have information, and that's what you are being asked to write. Okay, so for Ashoka, the third question again, Ashoka is again oft repeated, one of the favorite kings of UPSC. So we can see the question for Ashoka, sacredness meant ruling through moral example. So this is talking about Ashoka's vision of ideal kingship, of Dhamma Vijaya. So firstly, Ashoka's Dhamma. What was Ashoka's Dhamma? Ashoka's Dhamma is essentially consisted of 5 things. Okay, it was ahimsa, good conduct, mutual concord, and you see Ashoka's vision of ideal kingship and the Dhamma Vijaya. See, so these 5 aspects were there in Ashoka's kingship, which you can mention in introduction. In introduction, you can write that Ashoka was one of the greatest kings of Mauryan dynasty, and when he ruled, or why is he remembered so much. Okay, he had one of the largest empires India has ever seen. He's called Chakravarti. Some of these things you can mention in introduction. But remember, this is a 125 word question. So if you know a lot of things to write in the content, you may shorten your introduction. Just write 1 or 2 lines about it and just come to content part. Okay, so yes, so ideal kingship. So what is ideal kingship? The question is about ruling through moral example. Sacredness is ruling through moral example. So ideal kingship for Ashoka was about good governance and welfare state. So good governance for whom? That was the question. So good governance for Ashoka was for everybody really. So even people of all regions, even those outside his region, even those who are not born yet, even those who are dead, even animals. So everybody. So Ashoka's vision was, Ashoka viewed himself as a patriarch, as a father of entire family of his people of his empire. So that was good governance for whom? And the actions, so good governance, he took some actions. So he made medicinal provisions for men and animals. He planted herb plantation, he did drinking water constructions. So you can give some examples. And welfare state, that is about welfare state. Good governance, so he had concern for all across religions, castes, and genders, etc., etc. Then he tried to establish humane bureaucracy. He viewed his duty of king is that of ideal kingship as viewed by Ashoka in these 2 dimensions. And Dhamma of a king is to redefine conquest to the righteous one. So that's where the question comes in, ruling through moral example. So for him, the biggest achievement was Dhamma Vijaya. When Ashoka abjured violence and to achieve Dhamma, to achieve vision of Dhamma was the ideal kingship for him. And Dhamma of king is to redefine conquest to righteous one, which is through moral example. That's what the question was asking. So you can write these things there, which gives you holistic answer. But again, this is a 125 word answer. So you cannot really explain a lot of things, but I think you should have these things on your tips, which help in extending this to even 15 markers in CSE. So 3 pages also you can write about. You can write about ahimsa. You can write about his when Ashoka abjured violence after Kalinga war, etc. And you can expand on all of these things. Good conduct by whom? So he established all these rock edicts and pillar edicts. There was rules for behavior. There was mutual concord was highlighted in all those his Ashokan scripture inscriptions, etc. So that you can mention. You can draw a map. You can. So basically, I'm saying that have this on your tips because this is oft repeated themes Ashoka's Dhamma, and you can use it in your essays very effectively. Some of these things, Ashoka's Dhamma, Ashoka because is one of the good examples from somebody who abjured violence and then became great. You can use some of these things in your essay as well. Okay, so fourth question, the last question of history section. So it is about Dadabhai Nauroji, and they have given the period as well in the question. Okay, the contribution of Dadabhai Nauroji in early phase. Early phase, what are they talking about? 1885 to 1905. 1885 is establishment of Congress, and 1905 is just before starting of Swadeshi movement. So the first year. So remember that Dadabhai was there as a INC president in 1906 and not 1905. So then, please you should avoid mentioning Swaraj resolutions. That 4 resolutions were passed in 1906 under his presidency. That won't come in this main answer. You can mention it in conclusion or as a last point if you don't have the content. But there is a lot of content here, so not really a worry. So Dadabhai Nauroji, again, one of the most prominent figures of moderate phase of Indian freedom struggle. You can in introduction you can say that he was called the grand old man of India because his contribution in many aspects, multiple aspects, he had contributed. He was a founding member of IAC. He was the president of second section, wherein he declared that INC would not be a social reform body but rather focus on political reforms. He was a member of Legislature Council of Bombay. You can mention that. Again, one of the most important contribution is about economic drain theory and his book, The Poverty and Un-British Rule of India. You have to mention it because that is the main thing that moderates did. Like after economic drain theory, the economic nationalization was converted into political one with the advent of extremists. So this you have to mention. Others are okay. So 1906 Swaraj resolution, this I have mentioned here, but yeah, that will come in later. Another important thing you can mention is that Nauroji did everything he could to make sure that Indian voice is heard. So earlier moderates believe that our voice is not getting heard at the right platform, at the British Parliament. So those who are MPs there, they are not probably aware of our situation, and officers are at fault. So Nauroji actually went to Britain. He contested election on the ticket of Labour Party. The then British Prime Minister himself actually campaigned against Nauroji, asking British people that please don't vote for this black man. But actually Nauroji was very bright. He was Parsi, so they did vote for him, and he got elected as MP from Liberal Party in 1892, and he was the first British Indian MP. So in that platform, he made sure that Indian voice is heard, and then even then the situation did not change. So moderates came to that conclusion that yes, this is systemic loot, or you can say the drain, and officials have not had the fault. The system itself is designed like that, and Britishers. That's when the book came and the economic drain theory came up by Dadabhai, with the advent of Dadabhai Nauroji and many other moderate economists, including Justice Ranade, G.S. Iyer, etc. You know all them. Okay. So I've also enlisted other contributions outside of the period 1885 to 1905. Sorry. So yeah, he founded this Ranumai Mazda Sabha to restore Zoroastrian religion to original purity and simplicity. Basically, social reform movement in Parsi community. So Parsi community being very small and urban and already rich and educated, they were the first to really reform themselves. So Dadabhai was at the forefront of that. Then his publication Rashtra Avtar to promote social reforms. and he launched London India Society or East Indian Association. You can discuss that, okay. He became Prime Minister of Baroda as well. And this Student Scientific and Historic Society, which was a student movement, that was also due to him. So you can say that student movement in Indian freedom struggle began with Dadabhai Naoroji. Okay. So that's okay. So now we are done with the first history section. Second section is uh, economics. So basically there are 6 sections. Okay, first is always history, second is economics, third is polity. These are the questions we all will be very comfortable with. Then we have geography section. Geography has some questions for disaster management as well. Then you will have environment questions, and then the last section is science and technology, which is the most tricky part in this forest syllabus or forest preparation. There are questions which we don't read about. There is also one question which you'll find very weird. So we'll discuss that. So it's not possible to prepare everything in these papers, but let me tell you that it is not imperative that you attempt each and every question. So marking happens, in my opinion, if you answer the question properly and what is being asked in a proper manner, cover many points, you will get very good marks. If you just write for the sake of writing, it does not yield many marks. Maybe if examiner is feeling very kind that day, he may give you half mark or 1 mark. So please don't waste your time thinking that I did not know 1 question or 2 questions. That's okay, but just do whatever you know very well and you'll be fine. Okay, so 6 sections, 24 questions. We are done with 4. So let's get back to economic section. I think this is a usually very easy questions they ask in economy section. Okay, so this is straightforward question. So what is twin balance sheet syndrome and how will state-sponsored bad bank will deal with this problem? So twin balance sheet syndromes is something we have studied for long. Maybe some of you might have not studied it this year, but it is in news for last 4-5 years. Each economic survey discusses it. Recently the former economic advisor even called it 4 balance sheet syndrome, okay, last year. So this is again in discussions. So you should know about it because it has not been resolved till yet. NPS we hear a lot about it anyway. So twin balance sheet syndrome is basically, see, there are 2 balance sheets. One is balance sheet of banks and another is balance sheet of corporates. So in the boom period, I have written this history as well. In the boom period of mid 2000, state-run banks kept on giving loans. Okay, some call it the phone banking. So somebody is asking you to give loans, and in general as well, there was a lot of growth that was happening. Mood was very bright. So a lot of investments were happening. So corporate took on loans, but they could not deliver on the projects due to various reasons. You can mention them. That is not been asked here, but since this is a 15 marker, if you get a space, you can mention that due to variety of reasons, including global financial crisis or diversion of money, delays in projects or approvals, evergreening of loans, twin balance sheet syndrome emerged. So I will firstly define it. Okay, so question is first asking what is TBSS. So just start with the answering that thing. Okay, so twin balance sheets problem refers to stress on balance sheet of banks due to non-performing assets or bad loans on the one hand and heavily indebted corporates on other. So balance sheet of both are under stress, and corporates cannot return the money, banks do not have the money. So balance sheet of banks are under stress and corporates are also under stress. Bank cannot give loans because they have a lot of NPS, and corporates cannot ask for more loans because they are already indebted. So that's the problem. So our entire investment cycle suffers and the economy suffers. That is the issue. So I have mentioned here some brief history. And state-sponsored bank, which was proposed by Economic Survey of India in 2016-17. Some of you may have read it during your earlier attempts, but if you don't know it, you can skip it. Bad bank was in news, state-sponsored bad bank. because in this year's budget, NARCL has been announced by the government. That's why it was in the news, but it was initially proposed by Economic Survey of India 2016-17 when the Arvind Subramaniam was our chief economic advisor. Okay, so there was an entire chapter dedicated to this bad bank, and he called it Para then, and why it was important and how it will resolve everything. Okay, so in line with that, you have to write the answer because the reasons are similar why it will work. Okay, so what is the concept? Basically, you aggregate all the NPAs. So this entity, bad bank, will buy the stressed asset from the banks and try to resolve it themselves. Okay, that is the concept. So you aggregate and consolidate the stressed asset, and resolution is by experts. So the question, look at the question. How will state-sponsored bad bank will deal with these problems? Okay, there are two parts to it. How is exactly the bad bank which has been established? What are its modalities? One, and secondly, why will it work? I mean, if the original bank is not being able to recover the money, why will this work? I mean, what is so special about it? You are just changing hands. So NPS you are taking from this pocket into that pocket. So how will it resolve the problem actually? So that is the second part you have to answer. Okay. So understand this hidden demand as well, because therein lies the crux. So why is this bad bank so crucial, or why are people hopeful that it will work? Okay. So yeah, NARCL or let me see if I have mentioned the full form of this NARCL. Yeah, I've mentioned it. National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited. Okay, so this is NARCL which has been announced. So basically, it has been given guarantee by the sovereign government. So 30,000 crore rupees were guaranteed by GOI. 51% of this entity is owned by public sector banks. And what it will do is that for stressed asset, each of 500 crore and above, it will pay 15% in cash and rest in securities to buy NPAs. And these securities issued by the bad bank, they are backed by this sovereign guarantee. Okay. So that was the question. So how will this bank deal with this problem? So the question, okay, I have shortened the question, but question also mentioned that state-sponsored bad. Oh, okay, I have mentioned state-sponsored. So how has it been sponsored by state with this 30,000 crore guarantees? Okay. Yes. So why is it better? That is the main question, main theme. So if you mention this, you'll get very good marks, in my opinion, again, because that is the crux of the issue, right? So if you mention the crux of the issue in most questions, so you look at it from examiner's point of view. Okay, when one there is this chief examiner who sets the paper, so he already has some answer that he expects from you. So if you provide him that, then he'll give you maximum marks. So, and I think maximum marks would be very high. I mean, I personally believe that out of 15, you could get up to 11 or 12 marks if you really fulfill the demand of the question. But if you really don't, you will not get even 1 mark for writing anything you want. Okay. So coming back to this, so why was this NARCL so crucial, or why is this state-sponsored bad bank so unique? So it resolves two things that banks lacked. Okay, first is asset liability mismatch. What happened with the banks, that what is the business of the banks? Business of the bank is to give loans. Okay, they cannot give loans if they don't have the capital with them. So in this case, there was liabilities, or when people give money to bank, they have to give back immediately whenever asked or in the short period of time. But these loans, they are long time loans. So there is asset and liability mismatch. Loans which banks give, that is their asset, and money which people keep with the bank are their liabilities. So there is this mismatch between assets and liabilities. That is the crucial point which this entity does not have, because it is not in the business of lending or accepting your deposits. It is not. It is especially created to resolve these bad loans. So there is no asset liability mismatch. That is point number 1. And second is expertise. This is ALM, is asset liability mismatch. Let me write it if you want. Okay, there is no asset liability mismatch, and secondly, expertise. So basically, banks or the bank officers are not experts in resolving the NPAs. They don't know what is the best for them. They don't know how to get back the money, what is the best way to recover, what up to what amount can we take the haircuts, can we revive this entity. So all this should we convert it into equity and then sell. So they don't have expertise to take all this decision, nor the time to take all this decision. So with this NARCL or the bad bank, government will put these experts in resolving NPAs in command, and they will resolve this, or at least it is hoped that they will resolve this to the best of their abilities professionally. And underlying all this is assumption that experts will only do that. So cronyism should not happen. That is the assumption. But if that happens, then all bets are off, and we are back to square one. But why is this state-sponsored bad bank is better? It is these two reasons: no asset liability mismatch and no expertise. Okay. In conclusion, you can write this thing will lead to efficient mobilization of resources, because that is why we are doing this. So any economic problem or any economics question, you can lead to broader question of why we are doing this. In economics, there are 4 core questions that we usually address. Okay, first is growth of resources, second is optimum utilization of resources, third is redistribution of resources, and fourth is efficient mobilization of resources. These are the 4 questions that we try to address, and each step we take, each economic decision is aimed at achieving one or more of them. So this NARCL, we want to efficiently mobilize the resources, okay, which are being tied up currently due to twin balance sheet syndrome. Okay, let me clear it up. Fine. The next question is about COP26, Conference of Parties 26th Conference of Parties to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it happened in Glasgow, and it was the most important step in the direction to implement Paris Accords, because in between COP21, which was the Paris Agreement, and 26, all the things, there was nothing substantial happened, and there was no progress. There was only, you can say, quarrels among developed and developing economies. But in this COP26, a lot of positives, a lot of steps in the right direction were taken. A lot of right things were said, and a lot of realizations happened. So that's why this year UPSC has focused a lot on this COP26. In CSE mains as well, there was direct question on COP26. In forest mains as well, there is direct question on COP26. So yeah, I don't think next year it will be repeated, but you see the focus on kind of focus UPSC has on the bigger issues. Okay, so climate change is the bigger issue of our time. So COP26 was the biggest thing that happened since 2015. So you have to read it very, very, very thoroughly. And if you have not, I would recommend you to refer to Santosh sir's notes. There he has covered it very, very thoroughly, and it has helped me as well. It will help you as well. So some of them you can introduce it. I don't think I'll spend a lot of time in this, because it was really information based. Elaborating actions suggested for temperature control and transfer of funds. There are many pending issues that were there before COP26. Some of those issues have been addressed. So rule book has finalized, or the market mechanisms, Kyoto credits issue, that was resolved, and the mitigation is important, that was highlighted. But at the same time, adaptation is also important. That's what the second part is, transfer of funds for adaptation. So adaptation is important, that was highlighted here. So I have mentioned these points, you can go through it. So temperature control, these steps were suggested. There are some side agreements as well. So methane agreement was there, agreements on reversing deforestation. So these are the India announces Panchamri. That was again direct question on CSE mains. They didn't ask it here, but yeah, you can write this point, because we are trying to get into Government of India's services. And here LDC is to focus on adaptation, 2-year project to define these adaptation goals, carbon market. So all these points were sufficient. It was again a 15 marker. So two pages, you can have enough content. Okay. Now let me go to next question. Again, this was one of those questions which nobody knew, frankly. Even I had not even heard of this human poverty index before I saw it in the exam hall, and neither did many of the students. Of course, we know about human development index, but the question is about how human poverty index is better than human development index. And the thing I want to highlight here is that there will always be these questions which you have not heard about, which you don't know anything about. Again, okay. So there are two strands of thoughts here. One kind of people say that you should still write about anything you know related to it, and you'll get some partial marking. Another stand of people say that, see, if you don't know the answer, please don't attempt it. You rather focus your energies on other questions which you can attempt better and get more marks there. So which is correct, which is wrong, you can choose your sides, but I think you should do latter part. Because you see, if you don't know what human poverty index is, how can you write about it? And writing about human development index here is not going to yield you even a single mark, because that's not the question. You have to firstly answer the question. That's what I'm trying to convey here. So if you don't know anything about it, you can try to think rationally why this would be better. Or if you know the lacunas or limitations of human development index, you just write them that human poverty index resolves it, and chances are 60% of your points will be correct. But if you don't know that as well, you just know about human development index and its indicators, that's not going to give you many marks, because you don't know about human poverty index. So you can just skip the questions. Okay, out of 24 questions, if you skip one 10 marker, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. You can easily score very good marks in other questions. Okay, so if you focus your energies there, because here you have 24 questions in 3 hours, not 20 questions. So yeah, and I've researched it and given you the answer here, that HPI actually was precursor of MPI. So multidimensional poverty index of human UNDP, its predecessor was this human poverty index. It used to happen from 1997 to 2010. So after 2010, it has not happened. So I don't really know the significance of this question, but because it has happened. So it's mainly about the limitations of human development index. That's the part you can focus about. So what are the limitations of human development index that are resolved by human poverty index? So I have given you some HPI. What you can introduce by what is HPI if you know. So basically, it is composite index of poverty rather than just based on income. So there are other dimensions as well, like multidimensional poverty index only. So okay, so HDI measures average achievement of the country, and so it doesn't say anything about distribution. So for a country, if HDI is being measured, HDI is measured on 3 dimensions. Life expectancy, expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling, and GNI per capita. That's how you measure standard of living here. So it doesn't say anything about the distribution or the inequality in the society. So that's the problem. Poverty is also about inequality. That we know very well, that there is strong relation between poverty and inequality. So that this human development index does not measure, and so it is not very accurate measure of human development of all the people or the distribution of poverty in any way. So that's the thing. So that is the crux of the answer. I think that's what examiner is expecting, that inequalities or distribution of this development is not being measured by HDI. So it is basically more revealing. So HPI, there are many indicators like probability of not surviving till 40, adult literacy rate, number of people not having water, etc. So yeah, it is more revealing than HDI. I don't think we are supposed to know this, but since I'm giving you the model answer kind of thing, I've just enlisted them. But this you can maybe, if you think rationally, if you could figure that this is the major limitation of HDI, that is that HDI is measuring things on broader things and not, or the average level and not the individual level. And this another thing is HDI yields very small differences between the countries. So in between the ranking, let's say 120 to 140, there will be very small differences which you can't really, which don't really reflect the extent of development or development deficits or the comparison between those countries. So that's why the deprivations that still exist even for the rich countries. All the top rich countries will have same HDI, almost same HDI. So it doesn't reflect the extent of poverty, extent of deprivation in those societies as well. So that is the crux of the point, that distribution or the extent is not being measured here. And this is the last question of the economic section, that okay, the retail direct scheme for RBI for investment in G6, what is it and what are the advantages? So you know, now earlier we were only allowed to, retail investors were only allowed to invest in secondary market when it came to G6, but now even in primary market you can buy G6, you can open an account with dedicated account, it can be opened and you can invest in G6 directly. So that's the scheme. This is gilt account, you call it, retail direct gilt account, or RDG account with RBI you have to open and you can invest there directly. That's the scheme. So you can invest in government securities like treasury bills, state development bills, that's also there. Sovereign gold bonds. Sovereign gold bonds you can anyways invest in other with the banks as well or other revenues as well. So here also you can invest in sovereign gold bonds or G6 or state development rules. So what are the advantages? See, the advantages, if you don't know many advantages and you still have to write, think of stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders in this? One is the government, one is the investor, one is the market, one is the overall economy. You can write those points. So 2 points for each, you got over 8 points. That's what I mentioned. For investor, you have access to more investment instruments, which is the safest. Safest investment, government securities are considered safest. Improved and ease of access is there. So earlier we have the retail investor had to go through secondary market. Now with easy account with RBI, they can do it themselves. They don't need anyone. They don't need any intermediary or mutual fund or anything like that. For government, what is the benefit? It diversifies government securities market, widens the investor pool, brings more and more people into the market. So for market it is important that it is sign of a maturing economy, that markets get developed. Our markets are said to be underdeveloped. Number of investor or investor base is not as huge as it should be. So that is it widens investor base. It facilitates so government's borrowing program, it facilitates that as well. Okay, so completion, so government can borrow easily. And for regulator, what are the benefits? You know, vetting of large. So when the investor buys something, he vets the instruments, right? If you want to buy, let's say, some stock, you look at the technicals, how the company is doing, what are the cash flows, etc. So here also, if investor or retail investor, lot of retail investors are buying government securities, they will vet it. So they will decide if government securities is better, which is better, why not, what should be interest rate. So vetting will happen. So vetting means that that instrument would be more and more robust. So that is good for the regulator. The regulator wants clean, safe market, which is stable. That is the regulator job. And then it is market development. Fine. There's nothing much to it. I just wanted to highlight that you should focus on the stakeholder approach here. That is all. What should you do when you don't know the answer? One. Second, from whatever questions that are coming, from areas where questions are coming, what are the areas one should focus more on? Okay, and what should a strategy be? So, okay, other than that, as we already discussed, this is Forest Service Mains, and you have 15 marker and 10 marker questions. So like this is a 15 marker question, but it is a 200 word question, not a 250 word question as we get in Civil Services Mains. Okay, so we have to be cognizant of that fact. And so in for 200 words, we'll get 2 pages, not 3 pages. So even if you know a lot about it, even if the question is asking you a lot of things, you have to be cognizant of the fact that you have to confine yourself in 2 pages. You cannot go more than that. because there is no space, and 2, there is time constraint. So there are 24 questions and you have 3 hours. In civil services means you have 20 questions and 3 hours. Here it is even more challenging, but even if the word count is same, the question number of questions is 24. Okay, so that is the challenge that we have to mentally adjust ourselves to that. And secondly, see, in 200 words questions, there is not much a problem because you have 2 pages, and in any which way you write, you cannot write more than 200 words in 2 pages. But in 125 word questions, which are 10 markers, there also you have 2 pages. So there you have to consciously stop yourself from overwriting, because otherwise you will overshoot the time, and time is the only constraint really in the exam hall. Okay, and it is a race against time. Let's face it, it is a race against time. So you have to confine yourself to time limits for 6 minutes for 10 markers and 9 minutes for 15 markers. And for both you have same 2 pages, but here you have to write 200 words, there you have to write 125 words. Okay, so let's start with polity section. In polity there are 4 questions, and if you see the questions, they are same, very similar to kind of question you get in civil services mains. In other sections like history or economics, questions that are there in forest services mains are very direct. Okay, okay, let me even show you the question paper. If you see here, see the history questions, we have already seen it, but let me just revise it. So culture and influence of India in Indochina, very direct question. If you know, you just have to enumerate it, you just have to attempt an account. So you don't have to analyze or critically discuss or anything like that. You just have to give an account of. So enlist is kind of question. So again, Sher Shah Suri established reputation for being military genius as Babur and administrative genius as great as Akbar. So basically nothing, it's just about administrative and military policies of Sher Shah. Direct question. No analysis, no historical insights needed, you just need information. Okay, for King Ashoka, sacredness meant ruling through moral example. We have seen this. It is about Ashoka's Dhamma, oft repeated scheme, repeated theme in forest services mains. In civil services also it can be asked because it is a very interesting topic, but it will be asked in some different context. And here the question is analyzed, so it is civil services worthy. So I'll recommend you revise that thing that I have already discussed. Again, highlight the contribution of Dadabhai Naoroji. There is nothing complicated here. You see, let's come to economics. Twin balance sheet problem. Again, direct question. What is twin balance sheet problem? They are not asking you to give you reasons or how it emerged or anything like that. Just tell us what is TBSS and how will state-sponsored bank deal with it. Again, the direct question. State-sponsored bad bank was declared in last year's budget. So question from there. The question again, COP26, very repeated theme this year. There was a direct question in civil services mains as well. Here also there is a direct question. This question, Hpi and Hdi, we have discussed it, how to deal with it. See, this is not the question you can prepare for. Okay, if you know the limitations of HDI, you can say that yeah, those might be what HBI tries to resolve, or HPI probably doesn't have that. But beyond that, I don't think you can prepare for such kind of question because HPI is an old index. It was precursor to multidimensional poverty index. So I don't think we can prepare that. You can see the discussion we had there as well. Again, see the last question. Retail direct scheme of RBI and for investment in securities, and what are its advantages. Again, nothing complicated. They are not asking. See, the civil service examination, we had questions like V-shaped growth. Okay, so is it a V-shaped growth or is there something else? Analyze it or discuss it. Something like that was the question. Here, there is no complications. Here, just you have to write what is this scheme and what are its advantages. Nothing beyond that. So direct question. But when we come to polity, you see, the questions are similar, very similar to what civil services examination asks. So you have to be. So here you have another incentive to focus on the kind of question that are getting asked, the kind of themes that are getting repeated. And see, the forest services, it is all about previous year questions trend. Okay, so I have already I will tell you what are the areas where UPSC is focusing on in forest services examination. In CSE, it is very dynamic, it is changing. It is not that in polity every year they will ask similar questions or same question. There are something like NGO or SHG, they will be asked every year or every alternate year at least. But here core polity questions are asked, nothing beyond it, and the themes which are asked, they get often repeated. So let's look at it one by one. Look at the first question. Okay, despite undergoing multiple amendments, so the Constitution of India has remained intact and basic premises has not changed. Comment. So again, this is not an enumerate question. This is a comment question. It is a question worthy of civil service mains as well. This is not a direct question. So it means, again, look at the second question. Constitution is founded on a nice balance of power among three wings. Explain. So again, the balance of power between the three wings. So it is talking about principle of checks and balances. The similar question was asked, I think in 2020 mains on checks on balances, and it was only first question only. If you check it, I'm sure you'll find it. So see, the themes are getting repeated. Fundamental rights and directive principles are complementary and supplementary to one another. Very repeated theme. Fundamental right and DPSP. The battle between them is one of the highlights of post-independent constitutional struggle between judiciary and legislature. So that is being asked. These words, complementary and supplementary, are very often used for fundamental rights and DPSPs. Okay, and here they are asking about election commission and electoral processes, and they are asking about some issues in them and suggest electoral reform. Again, this is not a direct question. You have to know about what Constitution says about the election commission, what are the regulatory aspects that Constitution mentions, then what are the issues in it, and then how do you remedy it. So, look at the questions. These are the questions that are getting asked in CSE mains as well. Like this year in CSE mains 2021, there was a question on National Human Rights Commissions. Okay, the same question. There are some structural issues and procedural issues. Identify them and suggest remedies. Same on the similar lines. It was not a constitutional body, but yeah, it was a statutory body. Here it is a constitutional body, election commission. That's what the question is about. So let's get back to our discussion. Fine. Okay, the question number 1 or 9 rather. This is a 200 marks question. Despite undergoing many amendments, Constitution of India has remained intact and the basic premises have not changed. So what is this saying? Constitution has remained intact, 1, and the basic premises have not changed. What are basic premises and what is remaining intact means? So firstly, in introduction, if you know that there have been 105 amendments so far, it makes your job very easy. So some of these statistics is very handy when it comes to writing introductions. You don't have to think about it very much. So how will I introduce? You just write there have been, because see how they're starting. They're starting with many amendments. So you just tell them, yeah, I know there are 105 amendments, but despite those amendments, it has not changed. That is what you have to comment on. See, the comment question, you have to take a stand. Again, try to understand different types of questions as well. This is not enumerate question. This is not explain question. This is a comment question. So you have to comment on this statement. So in general discussion, see, you are talking to your friend, let's say, and he says something, and you say something either in support of it or in opposition to it. If you are in support of it, you justify it further. If you are in opposition of it, you give counterpoint to that. So that's what this is saying. So you have to comment on it, take a stand and justify it. That is what comment is all about. Okay. So fine. So what are the stand you can take? Are you going to take a stand that no, it is not so, and the Constitution of India has really changed a lot and basic premises have also changed? You may take that stand because the question is comment, but it is a very risky stand in the sense that justifying it requires some very strong foundation on your part, and the justification you require to do that would also be very long, because this is not a popular wisdom. See, otherwise they would not have given this statement in this form. you can take the stand. I'm just saying that you can take the stand, but my advice would be, in 9 minutes, in 2 pages, are you going to be able to really justify your point, which is that premises have also changed and constitution has not remained intact. You can take that stand because if you remember, there was a question in CSE mains. I don't remember the year, but they were asking that whether the adjectives of sovereign, socialist, republic are defendable, secular, republic are defendable in current times. So it means that UPSC says that you can take both stands. Are they defendable or not? So there are two opinions about it. But which opinion are you going to take? You can take that opinion here. So those are the basic premises and they have changed. You can say that, but I have taken the stand which says that yes, constitution has remained majorly intact and basic premises also not changed. So let's just pause for a moment and what do you mean by Constitution of India remaining intact and basic premises? Where do you hear this word basic? Of course, we hear it in the basic structure doctrine of Supreme Court, right? Which emerged from Keshwananda Bharati case. So basic structure is the same. That is the thing. And secondly, premises like sovereign, secular, republic, guaranteed fundamental rights, utopian society, vision of utopian society as enunciated in your preamble and and DPSPs, it has remained same. And people as source of power or democratic nature of our polity. These are the basic premises. Parliamentary system. Where do you see all these words at one place? They are to be seen in basic structure doctrine of Supreme Court. Okay. Judiciary, independent judiciary, judiciary as defender of constitution. It has all remained same. And see, another thing about basic structure is, again there was a question in CSE mains only about basic structure, and so the question was that seeds of basic structure can be found in constitution itself. So how is that? Okay, firstly, the constitution mentions these are the basic constitutional premises, etc. You can write, but understand the basic thing about amendment. What is amendment? Okay, if you are amending something, it by definition means a very small or minute change. Amendment should not have an effect of overthrowing the original document. That is the basic presumption behind the amendment. So when the Constitution of India creates legislature or the parliament and gives it the power to amend the constitution itself, it is a power given to adapt to changing times and not to overthrow itself. Can the body created by the constitution overthrow constitution itself? See that there is an issue, and therein lies the seeds of this basic structure doctrine. So amendment by definition is a small change, and judiciary as a defender of constitution identified this. They said that yes, by amending, parliament cannot do something which changes the constitution of India but in a fundamental nature, in a way in which it cannot have an effect which changes the basic structure of constitution. By that, what we mean is that after amending, the constitution should remain the Constitution of India. And what we mean by it should remain Constitution of India, the basic premises should remain the same. That's what the basic structure is all about. Okay. And for example, let me again give you example. So can the parliament tomorrow declare that let's just cut India in 2 pieces, and one of them would be India 1 and one of them would be India 2, whatever. I mean, this is just a hypothetical case. So can it be called an amendment? No, because then the resulting document is not a Constitution of India. It is something else. And so this kind of amendment cannot be done because the basic structure is getting violated. The Constitution itself does not remain Constitution of India. And that's what this basic structure doctrine ensures. It has their sovereignty, integrity, you know all these things. Sovereign, secular, republic, fundamental rights, DPSP, utopian society, etc. These are all the things that can be found in basic structure doctrine. And in the passing reference, we have to also mention that judiciary as a defender of constitution and wisdom of political class to accept this basic structure, have ensured this continuity, and that is why basic premises have not changed and constitution has remained intact. Because if you see, if the political class would have again tried to make a constitution amendment to nullify the judgment, again judiciary changes again, so this kind of battle we have seen. But now basic structure doctrine has been accepted across political spectrum, and that shows wisdom of our political class. They know that this was the right thing to do at that time, and they continue to do so. So we have to write that as well. Don't just write one-sided things. Accept that this is also as important in ensuring that basic premise is not changing in as judiciary as a defender. Okay, I think that was enough for 15 marks. See, this is a 200 word. So again, as we have talked about, you have only 2 pages to write. So yes, I suggest that you should write entirely 2 pages, because this is a 200 words, and in 1 page you can maximum write 100 words. You cannot write more than that unless your handwriting is very, very small. And again, with a suggestion, if your handwriting is way too small, make it a slightly bigger, or so it should be legible. So examiner should not have to exert himself. That is the idea. Nothing more about it. Fine. I hope you have got the picture what I wanted to say. You can take the contrary stand, but yeah, defending that stand would require some efforts on your part. But if you are competent enough to do that, well, go ahead. I mean, this is a comment question, so you can do that. Okay. Fine. Let's go to next question. Again, a very, very, very nice question. Okay. And oft repeated scheme, as we have already discussed. Fine. Indian constitution is founded on a nice balance of power between 3 wings of state: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. Question is, explain. You just have to explain it. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to counter it. Nothing like that. You don't have to take a stand here. You just have to explain whatever you can to the best of your ability. So what is this balance? Okay. If you have studied any good book on polity, you know that what balances they are talking about is this principle of checks and balances. What it means is that each organ of the state has an authority or has some powers to check on activities of other 2 wings. So there is check. No one organ of the state has unlimited powers. That is why this principle of checks and balances is important. And what it ensures? It ensures constitutionalism, which is basically limitation of power. No one organ or individual will have unlimited powers in a democracy. That is constitutionalism, or when there is constitution, no one has unlimited power. See, each wing has powers to keep others in check. So you just have to explain it. So what it means? How legislature is checking on other 2 organs, how judiciary is checking, and how executive is checking. These are the 3 organs. Very, very simple question. There is no complications per se here. But here, yes, you see, important thing here is writing these articles. So which it is going to give you an edge. Otherwise, everybody knows this stuff. This is not complications. This is direct question. There is not much thinking involved. Most of you would be knowing this, but if you can write these articles properly, highlight them, and write it in a neat way, so that examiner can see that yes, you have understood, you know the articles, you know your constitution, so you'll get very, very good marks. This is a scoring question. You see, this is a 15 marker. So out of 15, I'm sure you should get 10 or more marks here, because this is a very direct question. So here, in questions like this, you can cover up for the questions like human poverty index, which you don't know anything about. And if you spend more time or waste your time in questions like human poverty index, which you don't know about, you will lose out on the direct questions, which you should not do. Okay, just ensure that whatever you know, cover that first, in last 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever you can get, then only you can go back and write about human poverty index and whatever you can imagine. Okay, in that context, in that scenario, in what Just think rationally what it could be and then write. But here it is a direct question. You see, this is a question from your Lakshmikants and all the test series of all the classes. You get this question every time. You get this question in CSE. In 2 years back, we have this, only last year, not even 2 years back. In 2020 CSE, this was the first question, principles of checks and balances. Okay. So yeah, I have explained this. So how the legislature checks on executive? Simple, right? First is executive is responsible to legislature, so Article 75. Then there is budgetary control. So without permission of legislature or without rather voting, budget cannot be passed. So budgetary control is there. Post budgetary control is there. So there are these parliamentary committees like Public Account Committee, Estimates Committee, etc. And there are this other avenues as well. So question hour is there, 0 hour is there, short discussion is there. There are so many avenues for legislature to check on executive. Okay, so that's how they keep check on executive. So you should write about this, budgetary control, post budgetary control, this question hour, 0 hour, censure motion, adjournment motion, and so on. If you mention these keywords, like examiner will know that yes, this guy knows his stuff. It is see, in exam hall, it is not crucial that you should complete all your sentences. Okay, it's not a grammar examination. This is a UPSC's examination, and this is a GK paper or GS paper in CSE's case. So if you write something which is self-explanatory, you see the point, budgetary and post-budgetary control, and you explain what is it in one line. You don't even have to complete your sentences, but you have to write multiple dimensions. I have mentioned this, you can mention more, right? So there is short discussion, then short period discussion as we call it, and then there is censure motion, there is adjournment motion, and so on. You can mention 2-3 names, okay? But again, don't dwell too much upon it because there are other things you have to write. So you have to balance it. You have to be very smart about it, very fast about it. Thinking on your feet is important here. So how legislature controls on judiciary? That is removal of judges, of course. If you write the article here, and please tell me the article, I'm sure you can. I have mentioned it here, but yeah, removal of judges is also there. Laws invalidating judgments, that you can of course write, because if judiciary passes a judgment, then parliament can again pass a law to invalidate those judgments, and you can give examples like recently SC/ST verdict, right? Atrocities Act, judiciary gave some judgment and Parliament of India reversed that judgment, passing a law, amending that law. Okay, so that is there. So that is authority under Article 245. 245 is law making and revoking those laws and amending those laws. Okay, so that you can mention. Now, something we all know, judiciary, how the judiciary checks using doctrine of judicial review, of course. 13, 32, 226. This is for Supreme Court, this is for High Court. This is writ jurisdiction, and this is Article 13 about law which is in contravention to fundamental rights. It can be revoked. So basically, judicial review is in these three articles. On executive actions can be reversed or cancelled. On legislature, judicial review, and you should write this as well. Basic structure. Parliament cannot pass laws that violate basic structure. Parliament cannot amend constitution that violates basic structure. Okay, simple. Okay, it's too much now. Fine. Now executive check. See, here you will face some difficulty maybe, because judicial and legislative check we all know, but this is something we cannot think on feet. If you know it, well, very well. If you don't know, I have mentioned it. Okay. So how does executive check on legislature? Firstly, executive or the ministers or the prime minister in central government's case, or the chief minister in state government's case, they are the leaders in the legislature. So we are a parliamentary system wherein executive are the leaders in legislature. We have multi-party system, so that dynamic also comes into being. So that is there. That is one check. Another check is dissolution of legislature. So you know that president can dissolve parliament or Lok Sabha rather on the recommendation of Council of Ministers. Similarly, governor can do the same. If you write the article, it is good. I somehow forgot to write the article, and I'm not recalling the article right now, but write the article. Or see, for questions like this, okay, this is an oft repeated theme. Have this on your notes, have this in your memory, write it on the sheet of paper and paste it on your wall so that you revise it multiple times, because these articles are very popular. This is going to get asked next year as well, even not, if not in direct way like this, in some other ways it will help you. So have it on your tips, have this principle of checks and balances on your tips, okay, because this is very oft repeated themes. And after discussing this section, I'm telling you, I'll be telling you other themes which are getting repeated in forest services, of course in civil services as well, but particularly in forest services. And yes, president can summon or prorogue the session. That is also one way that you know, president and governor as well. So please here also mention governor as well, okay, because that also is one kind of executive check. And how does executive check on judiciary? Who appoints the judges? That is there under Article 124 to 17. This is for district judges, that governor does. You can also mention that. Fine. And conclusion is nothing. It exhibits nice balance, ensuring constitutionalism and a vibrant democracy. This word is very important. Highlight it, because that is why we want to have these checks. Fine. I hope it was clear. Next question. See, when these are very direct questions. Here, if you are facing problems in examination hall, it means that your preparation is lagging somewhere, okay? So it is time for you to wake up and do well, prepare well, okay? So this is again a very typical question. Fundamental rights and DPSPs are complementary and supplementary to one another. Fundamental rights and DPSPs are very, very popular themes for UPSC in CSE mains and in forest mains as well. And these two words, complementary and supplementary, are said by Honorable Supreme Courts on multiple occasions in multiple cases, and see, just so obvious questions that is discussed everywhere, and that will come sometime or the other, in some way or the other. So you should have all these things on your tips. It will make your life lot easier when it comes to exam hall. This is a strategic point. You see, when it comes to polity, these are kind of things that will save you a minute or a half a minute in exam hall, and it counts for a lot. Take it from me, it is a time against race, and under the examination stress, you need all the help you can get. And if you know, or if you have mugged up these things for once, if you have properly understood it, revise it multiple times, mug them up, okay, this is because you see, in 7 minutes you have to write 10 marker there, here you have to write in 6 minutes. So in both those cases, this is a race against time, and if you know the answer, it makes it easier. If you don't know, and if you try to think, if you start thinking about answer in exam hall, you won't be able to come up with quality answers, one, and two, you won't be able to complete the paper, which is huge disadvantage when it comes to competitive examination. So what is the strategic point here is that you should have these points on your tips always. These are the most discussed, most popular constitutional cases in our independent India's history, and just have 5 points about each of these cases in your notes, and you revise it daily, weekly, or quarterly or monthly, whatever you want, okay, but just have them mugged up. It makes life a lot easier in examination hall. Take it from me, I have given multiple mains, and it is true every time. If you know the stuff, you just write so fast and so well and so confidently, and you save time for other questions where you don't know many things, and you can then think about it, okay. So So for example, let me again give, in NHRC a question that was there in CSM Mains, I had just revised it outside exam hall. So I knew all the points, all the specifics, all the sections of the law before going to exam hall, and the question came and I was so happy. I just completed the question in uh, like 8-9 minutes. I could save through 2-3 minutes, and I knew that I had written the best answer. So that boosts your confidence, that gives you time for other questions where you are not having the kind of confidence. Okay, there you can think about it for a minute before writing. That is the advantage. That's why I'm saying that have this tip, have this on your tips. Fine. Let's come back to the question, these complementary and supplementary words. So I have enlisted the Supreme Court's cases or Supreme Court judgments from 1958, wherein they have talked about complementary and supplementary nature of fundamental rights and DPSP, because this was one of the raging issues in early history of our republic. So which is superior, fundamental rights or DPSP? Can you enact a law fulfilling DPSP, but which is in contravention to fundamental rights? So this seesaw was going on, and even before that, even in constitution making, which things to put in DPSP, which things to put in fundamental rights, there was a lot of discussion. And why? Of course, we want everything in DPSP to come to fructify, but do we have the kind of resources right now to do that? So that was the constraint. Resource constraint was there. Political, what you can say, opinion was not there. So there's not broader agreement on many of these concepts. So that's why it was kept in DPSP and not fundamental rights. So there was complementary right from the beginning. No, so that is what Supreme Court later has highlighted in many of its judgments. So you can introduce simply by fundamental rights represent civil political rights, and DPSPs embody social economic rights. Simple. Again, one thing you have to remember, this is a 125 words question. So you don't have a lot of leeway to write or explain yourself. You just have to fast enlist these cases, whatever I have mentioned more cases. If you can remember 3 or 4 of these and write them in exam hall, more than enough. Okay. So fine. Firstly, you should be knowing what does this mean, right? What does a foreign DPSP being complementary mean? What does them being supplementary mean? So these are the basic things before you, and so you need to understand the question to write it. So what is this complementary nature? Complementary basically means harmonious interpretation. Okay. Supreme Court in Kerala Education Bill case in 1958 has affirmed that there will be doctrine of harmonious construction. So fundamental in 1958, Supreme Court actually said that yes, fundamental rights are superior, but that does not mean that DPSPs are not important, and they have to be looked at harmoniously. There should be a harmonious interpretation between them, right? And there is no conflict as such between the two. That is what the complementary thing means. They do not oppose each other, but they are complementary to each other. They have to read harmoniously. Again, in Keshwananda Bharati case, again very popular case, you should know these cases, right? If FR and DPSP are conscientious of constitution and there is no antithesis, same thing, like no conflict, no antithesis, right? And the directive principles are supplement. So here they use the word supplementary. So conflict nahi hai. What is that? That is complementary nature, and they add on to it, that is supplementary nature. Fine. In Golonnath scheme, see the integrated scheme. So they are not conflict. There is no conflict. There is no. So it is complementary. It is integrated, which is supplementary. They are elastic enough, right? Again, this Pathuma versus State of Kerala. It is about bringing combination between FR and DPSP. Again, supplementary nature is being highlighted. Pathuma versus State of Kerala, right? Just a second. DPSP, socio-economic goals. Constitution aims at bringing about combination.
See, everywhere they are saying the similar things. So the point I am trying to make in all these things, if you write these things, it will make your answer stand out really, really well. And if you think that it is impossible, it is not. Believe me, these are the most popular things you can have apart from uh, uh, Parliament's power to amendability. That was one of the raging issues. This was the second raging issue during the early period. And if you trace it, the basic structure doctrine, you have to trace it constitutional history, because these are the things that are repeatedly getting asked. I'm again saying that. Pathuma versus State of Kerala. See, the constitution aimed at bringing about combination. Again, Mineral Milk case. This is so popular case. It's a nine judge bench was there. So fundamental rights are not an end in itself. It is a means. Fundamental rights is a means, and end is specified in directive principle, supplementary. Again, you see that. And in this case, a Dalmia cement case, this is a not that popular case. We don't hear about it a lot. But in this case, Supreme Court of India actually said that FR and DPSP are supplementary and complementary to each other. So from here, the question is getting framed. Fine. And this is again IR Coelho case. There was a direct question on it in one of the mains. IR Coelho, I think 2016 mains. IR Coelho case, there was direct question. It was about 9th schedule. Okay. In this case as well, we have to adopt middle path between liberty and public good. Liberty means fundamental rights, public good is directive principle. We as in, they said that it is responsibility of government to adopt middle path. So in that context, government did adopt middle path in right to education, making it a fundamental right from DPSP. And in DPSP, we have Article 45 now, which says that from 0 to 6, it is not yet responsibility of, not a fundamental right, but a DPSP, educating children aging 0 to 6. Fine. You can copy it, you can put it in your notes, you can put it in your sticky notes and stick on your walls. I think that in my opinion, that is one of the very, very efficient ways to mug up. Don't be shy, don't shy away from this word, okay, mugging up. This is about mugging up. You may call it repeated revisions, multiple revisions, or mugging up. It is one and the same thing. That is the demand of the examination. If you know the raw material, you have to have raw material ready on your tips, and then only you can connect the dots in the actual examination hall, because it is the race against time. Again, I am repeating it. Fine. Let's go to next question. This is about election commission. Okay, just a second. Okay. Election commission, as you know, is a constitutional body. So the question is long winding question. These are the kind of questions that are getting asked in civil services mains as well. So if you see, constitution has an elaborate mechanism to govern and control the electoral processes. Still there are some regulatory aspects that need improvement. Okay. So what is the premise of the question? Constitution, one, mechanism to govern and control electoral processes. So what is this mechanism? You know, it is Election Commission of India, right? So identify these issues and suggest some electoral reforms. So we have to identify the issues in constitutional mechanism. You don't have to write about electoral reform. This is not question about electoral reforms in broader sense. It is about regulatory aspects that are there in constitution that need reform. Constitution has elaborate set. Still there are some regulatory aspects that need improvement. Okay? So constitution, in the constitution there are some detailed regulatory mechanism that is being provided, but still there are some issues. What are those issues and how can you improve on it? That is the question. So yeah, this is the one question where I think you need to have knowledge about what is there in Article 324. The article you should know, I mean you must be knowing it, but what is there in this article? That is, I think, the demand of the question here, because what is this elaborate set of mechanism? So if you know that, then you can answer it very effectively. If you don't, you still can answer it, but you see, then you have to stick to the constitution. You cannot just go raging on about electoral reforms and raging. You should know that what is there in Representative of People Act and what is there in constitution. If you know that, even that is also sufficient. But since I am providing you kind of a model answer, I have included what is there in Article 324. If you know it, best. If you don't, at least have some idea what is there in constitution. These are again important constitutional bodies that are there, that is part of your syllabus, that is there in Lakshmikant, discussed in very detail. So you should at least be knowing what is there in constitution, what is there in law. Fine. So what is there in our constitution? Superintendence, direction, control of election commission is in with election commission. So one, then it talks about how the election commission shapes up. So there is CEC and the other election commissions as the president determines. Okay, so CEC is mandatory and others are not. Fine, others are decided by president. So he is mandated by constitution. Okay. Regional commissioner, that is also mentioned in constitution. If you don't know it, that's fine. On the recommendation of election commission, so president appoints him. Again, so regulatory issues we have identified here. But before that, let's focus on it. Conditions of service, tenure is to be fixed by the president, which is subject to law. So is there any law as of now? There is not. That's why the question is there. Okay. So it is being fixed by president. Condition of service, tenure, everything is being fixed by president. Okay. And removal of CEC as per Supreme Court judge, and others election commissioners or regional commissioners cannot be removed except on the recommendation of Chief Election Commissioner. So see, this is the issue. This is why the question is getting framed. These are many issues. So what is the most important issue in election commission? It has been highlighted by many former chief election commissioners, including S.Y. Qureshi, you must be knowing. So that this anomaly, this CEC versus EC anomaly, that needs to be corrected. What is the anomaly? Actually, Supreme Court has said that CEC is not superior to any election commissioner, but he is first among equals. But if you look at the constitution, that is not what it seems like. If he is first amongst equal, yes, they must have same remuneration, etc. But they must have same standing as well. CEC is mandatory, but other ECs are not. You see? So that is point number one. That is anomaly number one. Second anomaly, CEC is removed as per judge of Supreme Court, but EC is on his recommendation. So this is the major anomaly, right? So basically, election commissioner can be removed by the president on recommendation of chief election commissioner, just like that. But if one wants to remove chief election commissioner, one has to go as per removal of Supreme Court judges. So what is the procedure? You know the long winding procedure prescribed in Judges Removal Act. So there has to be parliamentary process. So the motion to remove is presented, then it is voted upon. If it is accepted, the chairman or the speaker sets up the 3-member committee. That committee analyzes whether the charges are true, etc. Then the voting happens. Then it has to be 2/3 in both houses. So it is a long winding process, not simple at all. And that protection is being provided to CEC, but not to other ECs. Why is that? If the CEC is first among equals, that should be extended to others as well. So that is anomaly number one. That is regulatory issue number one. Second issues, do you see any qualification being provided here for the election commissioners? No. Do you see any tenure specified? No. All this has to be done by president if there is no law. So there is no law as of yet. That is again another issue, another regulatory issue. There is no law to specify all these things, right? This is issue number one. This is issue number two. And three, there is no procedure for appointment. The president just appoints election commissioner. Even for statutory bodies like CVC, for CBI director, we have dedicated procedure for CBI director. 3-member committee of prime minister, leader of opposition or leader of largest opposition party, and Chief Justice of India or his nominee. They are to be they actually sit together and decide who is to be CBI director. There is no such procedure for Election Commission of India, which is a constitutional body. There should be, right? So that's the thing. These are the regulatory issues in constitution. Fine. What are the reforms? Then correcting constitutional regulatory anomaly. So provide same security to other election commissioners as well. Mandate them as well, include them as well, as and when required. If president says that there are it is a 3-member body now, do that in constitution. Why not? And you should have a law, as the constitution says, law specifying tenure, qualification, procedures, like collegium. Have a collegium like CBI director or CBC. Fine. And if you still have time or space, you can write the other reforms that are required, which decriminalization, disqualifying those having criminal antecedents at an early stage, like if the charges are framed, disqualify them, please. Control money power. So state funding you can mention. You can talk about here Dinesh Goswami committee, right? And internal democracy in parties. That is also again one of the reforms that is expected. Fine. Okay. So here we end the polity part of the syllabus or the discussion. Fine. Now let me just enlist some important repeated themes. Fine. Now, as you might have already gathered, one is of course FR BPSP, right? Second is federalism, again oft repeated theme. Third is PRIs. So third tier. 4 is parliament. These are very oft repeated scheme which you must revise a lot, revise properly before going to forest services mains, because questions will be asked from here only. Fine. There are, of course, you can revise entire polity, but these are especially popular themes. One of these question will always come. Out of 4, one question will always be from here, or I'll say 2 questions will be from here. Okay. Federalism, I mean, of course, it will include role of governor and other things. Okay. Fine. Now, let's go to next section. Okay, these are the themes I've identified from next 3 sections. Okay, so they are often intermixed. One of them is geography. It is about geography, human and physical geography, and disaster management. One section is about environment, biodiversity, and one section is about science and technology, which is the most scary part of the forest preparation, because there are very arbitrary questions that are getting asked in forest services science part. Okay, so let's first come back to other 2 sections like geography and disaster management and environment. Okay, first question, and just it was just the question, enlist the biogeographic zones of India. This is not the kind of question you will get in CSE mains. That's why it is important to have static syllabus as well revised. So you know that if you don't, there are 10 biogeographic zones of India. If you don't know, just go back, pause this video and Google it. There are 10 zones, very simple to remember, just watch it, come back. Then geomorphological resources, landslides, very popular. Disaster management, one question will always be there. Here Amazon fire, disaster management you see. Then these kind of questions are not getting asked in CSE mains. That's why we have to study it separately. Plant fiber classification, phytoremediation, what is the use of microorganisms in petroleum industry. These are not the kind of question you will see. What are the enzyme their characters, types, regulation, meiosis, mitosis. These are all the questions from biology part of 11th or 12th NCERTs. You can find all these things. Okay, so you have to revise it. What I'll suggest is that don't read NCERTs if you haven't. Just watch YouTube videos. Okay, which discuss entire biology books, like 11th or 12th in 2 hours or 3 hours, something like that. They are discussing for 11th, 12th students, but you can also benefit a lot. Okay, so there are a lot of good things you'll learn about. So this kind of question you can handle easily. Then what is difference between mitosis and meiosis, etc. Enzymes. So that is all there in 11th, 12th NCERT. You can just go back and before the forest mains, 15 days before or 10 days before, just watch those videos. You'll feel confident about it. Ki, I have studied it. Even then, there's possibility that question may come which you don't know about. But let's be assured, if you don't know, nobody will know. That is for sure, because these are the kind of questions we don't study for CSE, and 99% of the, let me refine it, 95% of the people who will appear for forest mains are the civil services CSE mains aspirants, and they are not really forest aspirants. Okay, so if you don't know, there are high chances nobody will know, and the question itself doesn't then contribute a lot towards your score anyway. Rather, you should do well in the things you know. That's why I discuss polity in so much detail, because these are the things we know, right? We have studied so much about it. We can take more efforts for it for CSE as well as this mains. So, but yeah, this thing you should do. I mean, don't take this examination lightly. This is also a UPSC examination. This is also all India service. This is also a lot of this is also a competitive examination. Don't take it lightly. Just revise once through online videos. I can't recommend what I watched because I don't recall, but you can watch any video which gives you entire gist of NCERT of biology or chemistry in 2 hours or 3 hours. Watch it once, you'll understand it. Whatever you find important, pause it, take a screenshot, and you can revise that screenshot. This is very practical strategy I'm talking about, and one that I have followed as well. Okay, it's not, I'm only suggesting, I've already followed it and benefited from it. See, organellar genome, again the NCERT, nanotechnology in agriculture, this you can attempt because you will prepare it for CSE. And Santosh sir discusses it very well in his classes. You can attend them. Then this is model organisms, again there in NCERT. Greenland ice melt, a general knowledge question. Australian bushfire, again a disaster management thing. So on basis of that, I had thought of revising these things: biotechnology, disasters, and COP26. So disaster one question was asked, COP26 one question was asked. So it helps. Analysis like this helps sometimes. You can analyze it for the future as well. You can take note of what is being asked. You can go back yourself and study, analyze it, and prepare a list of topics for the future for yourself. Okay, fine. Now let's go back to actual question. Oh, sorry. See, question number 13. In India, the rate of soil erosion is increasing. That is okay. That is the statement, which is a cause of concern. Okay, well, yeah, we understand. Suggest some remedial measures to control it. Firstly, if you know any data to support this thing, that is the best introduction. If you don't, this is the best introduction. Why is it a cause of concern? I have not mentioned introduction here. I have just come to remedial measures in the notes, but this is something you can mention as an introduction. Why is it a cause of concern? This is a 200-word question. You will get 2 full pages to write it. You will get 9 minutes to write it. You can spend half a page here, and in 1.5 pages you can give remedial measures. If you know the data, you can mention it. How much land is degraded? ISRO data you can quote, or UNCCD data you can quote. And if you don't know, so yes, soil, what you just say what is soil erosion, removal of uppermost layer of soil, uppermost layer of rock. Okay, and why is it a cause of concern? That you can mention 4 or 5 reasons shortly. Don't enlist it, or you can enlist it even, but you can even write just by giving commas as well, because you are introducing it. Okay, why it is a cause of concern. That is not the main thing of the answer. Main thing is really simple. It is a cause of concern. Suggest some remedial measures. Now, you can write about remedial measures. So, and I also enlisted them, but I want to talk about something different. So I want to talk about approach when you find it such a direct question. Okay, everybody will know what remedial measures are, right? You know what you have to do to control soil erosion. You have to plant trees. You have to stop moving water. You have to build dams about dams. Okay, so these are the things that everybody will write. So how can you be structured about it? That is what I want to talk about here. See, first thing I said is that yes, after introduction, you can say that uh, soil erosion happens due to many of the eroding agents such as wind, water, sea waves, glaciers. These are the common eroding agents, and we need to have, first point will be, we need to have targeted approach identifying causes of concerns of erosion. So everywhere erosion will not happen due to one single reason, right? There could be multiple reasons for erosion. So you have to go at a particular location and you have to adapt as per eroding agents. Why is erosion happening at that particular location? You have to do targeted approach here. Targeted remedial measures should be there. You cannot just have uh, one way fitting all. One size fits all does not work. You have to have targeted approach. So you have to mention it. You just mentioning random remedial measures gives such a bad impression, because it gives the feeling that you're just writing whatever which is coming to your mind. You're not being thoughtful about it. You are not understanding the question. So if you must have you can see, this is such a rational thing. Why is soil getting eroded in Rajasthan? Why it is getting eroded in, say, Maharashtra or Assam, or it will be different even within those states. Okay, so wind erosion. If there is wind erosion happening, you can build settlements. You can have sand dune fixation, agroforestry, forestation. You can do all these things, right? Uh, if you are a forestry student, you know all these things, what they mean. Shelter build is basically you build trees like in increasing and decreasing order of heights. So wind gets uplifted, and here this area is protected from wind erosion. That is shelter belt. Fine. Then nothing much special about it. Then agroforestry or forestation, sand dune fixation, that you can do when wind erosion is the major cause of erosion. When rainfall or water is there, contour farming, agro-silvopastoral systems, checks dams, watershed management, strip cropping, basically reducing speed of water. See, this is not something you don't know about. This is something I'm telling you how to be organized about it. Then it's about sea waves. Then you have mangrove afforestation and reforestation. If there is glacier, then barrier of sand and rock. So underwater walls could be built to stop soil from moving. Upper part can keep moving. Soil erosion can be stopped. It would stop ice sheets from sliding and collapsing and prevent erosion. Fine. So this is important. Targeted approach. Fine. But you don't have to stop here. If you are taking some step, is only taking remedial step helpful? No. You have to also take preventive step. You have to also take managing step. You have to also be sure about governance to keep it sustainable. That's what I mentioned, right? Mainstreaming of soil erosion control in policies of water management, usage, agriculture, forestry. In all these policies, soil erosion must be considered, must be given due importance. It is called twin track approach. Uh, you know, in one of those newspaper articles, it was suggested for uh, disabled people. Okay, so we have to ensure. Basically, they were talking about disability should be part of, disabled people should be considered part of every policy. Okay, for example, in Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, there must be due consideration given to disabled people, as well as there should be disability specific policies. Okay, so for disabled people, there should be specific policies. This is twin track approach. So in mainstream, other policies they should be considered in, and policies should be made specifically for them. This is a twin track approach, and this is such an easy, simple way that you can use it anywhere you want. I've used it here in soil erosion control. So there should be policies to specifically control soil erosion, and you should mainstream soil erosion in policies of other policies of water, forestry, etc. You can use it anywhere you want. So this is what's being smart about it. Okay, this is not something that was directly applicable to it, but I knew it. I had it on my tips, so I could directly use it here. Okay, take a note, keep an eye open for all these things. Then awareness of stakeholders against deforestation, illegal mining, shifting cultivation. These are the reasons for soil erosion. That also you can mention before this. Governance, controlling human activities, implementing laws and policies, accountability, transparency. The local involvement in governance. All the very standard points. There is nothing fancy here. It's just organized. One more way I'll tell you to organize. If you want, you can look at soil erosion as a disaster as well. Okay, it is a kind of disaster, and you can try to fit in Sendai framework in this thing. Okay, Sendai framework gives you 5 themes for action. First is of course early warning systems, or so data gathering, so actual situation. That also you can, one point you can mention data. That could be mentioned here as well, real time analysis, etc. Fine. That is one thing, early warning and data gathering and putting in systems to place, systems in place. Secondly, it is about governance, putting in proper governance system, assigning accountabilities and responsibilities. Third is structural measures. So in case of disaster, they give example like building shelter homes, etc. Here you can talk about building contour dams, check dams. These are all structural measures. Building non-structural measures is the fourth thing. What is it? Having technological regimes, having awareness drives. So basically everything we have written here, it can be converted into that framework to fit into, see, it gives a structure to your answer. It separates you from others who are just writing whatever coming to their mind and more or less similar points to you. And finally, capacity building that we are doing here, awareness and accountability and in general, empowering locals to in governance, involving locals, stakeholder. We are involving stakeholders. We are uh, giving them education and skills to control it. Okay, fine. That's what I wanted to discuss about it. Otherwise, very standard points. Nothing more to discuss about it. You can take a note. You can take a screenshot as well, or maybe possible I'll share the PDF. Fine. Again, very standard question in economics as well as human geography. Demographic dividend versus demographic disaster. Standard question. I don't think there is much to explain here as such. But let's see. Overpopulation is considered a bane for India. Describe some relevant strategies to make India to make it is a boon for India. Okay, so we want to make overpopulation into a boon. Right now they're saying that it is a bane, but we want to make it a boon. So how can we do that? What are the describe some relevant strategies for it? So this is again, as I said, very common theme: demographic dividend versus demographic disaster. It is only getting discussed here. So introduction, India's population is to overtake China's very soon, and it will be demographic disaster if we don't take appropriate steps to convert it into a boom. Okay, you can even start with data. India is a young country. Average age is around 29. So we can say we have a potential to become skill capital of the world on the backdrop of digital revolution or fourth industrial revolution, as we say, because the rest of the world, many of the developed countries are aging. So we have potential to do that. We want to become skill capital of the world, and therein, towards that, we can take following strategies. I have not explained it in detail, but it is a 200 marker, I believe. Yes, it is a 200 words, not marker. Sorry, it is a 200 word question. You can describe them in bit. Nothing complicated. These are 5 things. I had it on my tips. I had memorized it. Okay, so any question, how do we convert demographic divide and disaster into dividend? These 5 things I have mentioned. Firstly, human capital building. So educating them, skilling them, training them, intelligence, skill, health, experience. So yes, health is also here. as a important part of human capital, and overall experience is recognizing their experiences, upskilling, reskilling, that all is there in human capital formation. That's the crucial for becoming skill capital of the world, right? Then other things are there. Industrialization, on the backdrop of fourth industrial revolution, we don't want to move, we don't want to miss the bus now. We have to shift underemployed population from agriculture to industry. We have to industrialize, and post industrialization, no country has really developed without having a strong industrial base, which we currently lack. We are a service driven economy. We want to industrialize. World is on the cusp of IR. We need to get on the bus early this time. We don't want to miss the bus. So that is second part. Third is financialization. Financialization is basically we want to develop our market. We want to develop market and market institution. We want to get more and more investor base, right? To have financial products, to have mature economic and efficient mobilization of resources. We want to have financialization. I have mentioned what it actually means. There are some steps being taken like gold bond scheme, RBI's national strategy, financial inclusion, right? Formalization of economy, of course. We want to formalize the economy, mean we want to have unorganized economy into organized economy. We want to get them registered, make sure that they are following proper norms and rules and laws, as well as all the employees that are working there, they are getting proper social security and access to government schemes as well. So that's why formalization is important, and urbanization is as crucial as a job magnet and a growth engine, because having all the skilled capital or having industrialization is contingent on having large urban centers which can act as a growth magnet, growth engine, and a job magnet. We want to provide them job. Urbanization is not a negotiable thing. It is happening at a fast rate, and we want to create more urban centers rather than having very few urban centers. We want to create more urban centers as a job magnets and growth engines. Okay, that's the thing. And we want to have sustainable urbanization as well. You can mention that as well. Okay, so these are the strategies I have mentioned. If you can think of any other strategies, you can include it. But I believe these are okay. These are diversified strategies. I have not only focused on human capital, because that's the thing, right? Most of the students, if you don't know it, you haven't studied it, what will you focus upon in questions like how to convert overpopulation into boon? You will only focus about human capital. You'll talk about education, skill. I've mentioned it all in one point. They will talk about it 5 separate points. Does it make any sense? No. They are asking strategies, right? So these are the strategies. This is one of the strategies. It is one of the things we have to do, not the only thing that we have to do. So write it down. You can write it when you are giving mock test, because this question will get asked n number of times before we actually give you actually give mains. So you can try it out, see how many marks you get, see how much you are appreciated for writing such a rich content, and then you'll realize that content is the king, and you have to diversify your answer like this. Okay, fine. Let's go to next question. This is 125 words now. Again, this was one of the questions which you cannot predict really, you cannot prepare for it, because this is not a disaster which we study very often. This is not a disaster which leads to scales which make it imperative for us to study. Santosh sir has so used to discuss it earlier, but so I recalled it. I knew some of it from 2-3 years back, but now we are not discussing it in very details in any of the classes material. I don't think lightning as a disaster is getting that kind of highlight, and probably that is the one of the reasons the UPSC is asking question on it. Okay, but see, I agree you don't know the question, but let's read the question. Frequency and intensity of lightning is increasing in India. That is a statement. Okay, if you know the data, that's fantastic. But we don't, because we have not studied it. That's okay. Nobody would know it. Let me again assure you, this kind of data nobody knows, because lightning is not such a popular disaster anyway. Fine. Discuss the causes and consequences of this phenomenon. So there is nothing much to think about here. This is a 125 words question. You have to write causes, you have to write consequences. You can write 5 causes, 5 consequences, and that's more than sufficient for 10 markers, I believe. Okay, fine. You can define lightning in your in a simple language, because we don't know the data that intensity is increasing in India. So we'll just define the lightning. It is a giant spark of electricity between clouds, the air, and the ground. Right. The air is so how does lightning happen? Lightning, essentially air is insulating material in the beginning, but if the voltage difference gets huge, the air also conducts the electricity, and that electricity is over 1 billion volts. Okay, so it is extraordinarily horrible to have destructive potential. That kind of destructive potential is really huge. Okay, so billion volts, you can imagine what we get light here, it's 240 volts. So yeah, so this is the data I got from internet. So yeah, you may not know it. I also didn't know it. That's okay. But now you can note it down in case the question gets asked in the future. Uh, lightning is becoming more frequent. Nearly 19 million recorded strike in the 12 months up to March. Okay, up by third from previous year. So it has been increased by 1/3 or 33%. That's okay. Now causes. Now something is increasing. Some climatic phenomena. Lightning is a climatic phenomena, and it is increasing in intensity and in numbers. Why would it be happening? What is the climatic changes that are happening? So anything that is happening, you can blindly close your eyes and write climate change, because that is the reason so many things are changing. That is the reason we are getting more and more cyclones or destructive ones. We are getting changes in our atmosphere, our atmospheric humidity, changes in our rainfall patterns, of like even monsoons, seasonal changes. So at the time of recording, we are almost halfway to March, and yet the summer hasn't really arrived in Delhi. And it will in a week, but it will be extended now. You see, this pattern of seasons are changing. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. So these are the causes. Global warming, because of climate change, localized heating is happening, and more moisture. So if localized heating is there, moisture is getting upwards. There is more and more cloud formation, uh, so voltage difference, lightning, rising number of cyclones which come along with thunderstorms, lightning. And of course, this is also there in India. We don't have really lightning rods over buildings, so destructive potential is high. Consequences, what would be consequences? Loss of life, loss of human life, loss of animal life, destruction of property, damage to heritage buildings. So there was this Chittorgarh fort that was damaged last year due to lightning. But yes, these are the reasons. Everybody will write. You can also mention some more things, that it may lead to other disasters. Lightning may lead to forest fires. Lightning may lead to landslides. So it may trigger massive amount of carbon which is sequestered inside. Um, Actually, it is not really applicable to India, but still you can mention it in the conclusion. Permafrost methane can be released due to this lightnings. So this is about it. So the thing to note here is that you don't need to know each and every question. Okay, that is fine, but you can still manage it, because this is a anyway 125 word question. 5 things here, 5 things there. Here you can write climate change and 1-2 more reasons. Whatever you can think about, like you can think rationally, right? Why would lightning be increasing in India? What is changing? Cyclones are more, thunderstorm. That point you can definitely write. Climate change. So I said you can write even with closed eyes, or that is true. One, you can again write monsoon pattern changing. That is why again we can write. So uh, again, these are the things you can write. These are actually the reason, because localized heating, this point you may not be recalling in the exam hall, but that's okay. You don't have to write perfect answer every time. You just have to write better than others, and do where you know the answer, you write the best answer there. Okay, that is the crux. Again, this is data. Around 2,500 people die in lightning strikes, more than in only 45 in US, वगैरह. I've mentioned it, but of course, we cannot expect every aspirant to know every data like this. So okay, fine. They are thunderbolts as much as billion volts, and they may cause immense damage to property. Okay, so these are general points. You can take a note. Let me go to next question again. Here in this question, I'm particularly trying to highlight what the understanding of question means. Okay. So okay, question is energy transition is considered the best method to achieve goal of carbon neutrality. Fine. They are not saying it is one of the ways. They are saying it is considered the best measure, the best. Now we have to explain. There is no counter to it. You just have to explain why is it considered the best. That is all. So introduction is easy. What you just have to define carbon neutrality. So it is about balance between emissions and removal of GHGs. That is, whatever carbon is emitted, that is getting sequestered, maintaining overall balance in the atmospheric carbon content. The atmospheric carbon content is stable. Okay, fine. Now coming to energy sector, why it is such a crucial thing? Why is converting from conventional, or rather coal and oil, to renewable energy sources? Why is it such a crucial thing, or why is it the best measure? Again, I am highlighting it because the question is not asking about one of the measures, it is asking about the best measure. It is the best measure because energy sector is source of around 3/4 of greenhouse gas. 3/4, you can imagine, and it holds key to averting worst effect. And this is what is where I'm getting this data from is International Energy Agency. IEA is also saying that to really achieve carbon neutrality, I have not mentioned this point, you can note it down, 90% of our energy needs should be coming from renewable sources. That's again IEA statement, 90% from renewables. That's what they recommend. That's what they say for carbon neutrality, of course. And energy is at the core of many emitting sectors like transport, industry, agriculture, etc. Now here comes the answer. Why is it the best? This was all introduction, and this was highlighting that yes, I know the thing. Now I know why is it the best. But there are many other reasons as well. Fine. First is it is not reliant on carbon negative technologies. So we are not talking about, yes, in the future if we sequester more than we emit. No dependence. We are just talking about uh, energy transition. So we already have the technology, which is solar, wind, etc. We are just transitioning from technology. We are not depending on any future technological advancement that may happen. That is not here. That is why it is the best. Secondly, this technical feasibility is there, technological maximizing. Thirdly, cost effectiveness. You see what is the rate of solar or wind energy these days? It is, about 2 rupees or even less than that has been achieved. So cost effectiveness is huge. That is what gives this transition edge over other strategies. Then another thing, there is social acceptance. Now we have accepted worldwide that solar energy is as good as conventional energy. Okay, it doesn't matter. We use solar so often, like for solar, from solar water heaters to cookers to solar energy. We have electricity generation from solar, so it has social acceptability, solar and wind energy, like conventional sources. Okay, so that is again important thing. Another thing, it ensures continued economic growth. It is not talking about reducing our usage. Transition is talking about getting our energy from somewhere else. That is why it is ensuring continued growth. We are not talking about we should be not producing more, or developing countries should stop growing, or don't have to produce a lot. We are not talking about anything like that. We are talking about energy transition here. Why is it? It will ensure that growth is continued. We are just ensuring that we get our energy from somewhere else. That is all. That's why it is acceptable as well. So it will help us secure energy supplies, and electricity is becoming cleaner. Electrification emerges as crucial economy-wide tool to reduce emission. So this is why this is the best. So this question, I see again, you may not know all these things in exam hall, but I am again stressing how to understand the question. The question is not about is it one of the ways, it is the best way because it has many benefits and it has acceptability, it continues economic growth, it is not reliant on other technologies and it is technologically feasible. And over and above that, energy sector contributes to 3/4 of our emissions. These are the reasons why it is the best measure to achieve carbon neutrality. I hope you get it. And yes, please include all these points in your notes wherever you are mentioning. And of course, in conclusion, you can say that yes, it is not enough. We need to do other things as well. But we should make decade of 2020s as a decade of massive clean energy expansion and transition. That you can mention. Fine. Now, we still have 8 more questions to go. Let me take a 2-minute break. I'll just get some more water. Okay. नहीं पानी इसमें रखा था ना। अच्छा देखा नहीं मैंने, सॉरी। हाँ ऐसे विश्वजित सर आप इंटरव्यू घेतला होता तुम्ही लास्ट मला लक्षात आलं करून सांगितलं फॉरेस्टची मेन्सचे पेपर डिस्कस करायला सांगितलं होतं सरांनी, आत्ताच झाली ना ते डिस्कस करायला. अजून संपली का? नाही, एक 8 क्वेश्चन राहिले. कोण ऑफलाईन बसले का? नाही नाही रेकॉर्डिंग. Okay, let's get back to next section, which is basically about agriculture environment. Okay, there are 4 questions. Now you must be very thorough with it. Now let's look at this question. Okay, again a direct question. There is not much challenging understanding the question or understanding the demand. Question is, what are the features of zero budget natural farming and how is it different from organic farming? Simple. But you should be knowing about zero budget natural farming. See, zero budget natural farming is one of the things that is in discussion for last 2-3 years. In I think last to last year's budget, Honorable Finance Minister highlighted this kind of method in her budget speech as well. So it is in discussion always, and it has a lot of sides to it as well. I mean, there are supporters who claim that yes, this is the best thing, it will improve productivity, it is a natural farming, good for environment, it is good for farmer, it will give more income, etc. But there is opponents to it. So, and it is not that this is anything to deal with politics. These are experts within Niti Aayog as well. So, if you know, I think Ramesh Chand, I'm not sure if I'm getting the right name right, but yes, there are severe differences within Niti Aayog as well, whether this is the right strategy, whether this is sustainable as well, because there have been reports that yes, in initial years you may get a productivity boost, but it is not sustainable, and can we really shift to large scale, at a large scale to this kind of farming? But that is not that is again question of debate and policy. That is not our concern in this question here. It is just asking about features of ZVNF and how is it different from organic farming. So for that, user introduction is simple. What is zero budget natural farming? Zero budget natural farming is a chemical free method of agriculture drawing from traditional Indian practices. You can mention that it has been developed by botanist Subhash Palekar in mid-90s. He is a Padma Shri awardee as an alternative to green revolution methods. Fine. That this is enough introduction. This is a 200 marker, 200 words question. So features. Now I have this photo from Santosh sir's notes here. You can see that Santosh sir discusses it every year. That's why I could answer it very well. I knew the name of Padma Shri Award. I could write that as well in exam hall. I could write these 4 pillars as a features as well. So what are these 4 pillars? I'll tell you. There are 4 pillars basically: Bijamrut, Jivamrut, Achchadan, and Vapas or Vapasa. What is Bijamrut? Basically, Bijamrut is seed treatment using cow dung, cow urine, lime, and soil. These are basically fungicides. So this is used as a soil treatment. Fine. Second is Jivamrut. It is preparation of inoculum consisting of, it is used as base fertilizer, is mixed with water, cow dung, cow urine, jaggery, flour, and local soil. So it is prepared, it is spread in the farmland. It is used to activate the microorganisms of the soil. That's why it is important to use local soil and local cow dung who are adapted to that locality or local farming conditions, climate. That is why they are considered the best. That is what Jivamrita is all about. Advantages are there. See, this is not you have to write in these 200 words. You just have to mention what is Bijamrut, Jivamrut, only this thing. Don't write advantages, right? How it is applied, you don't have to write it. Achchadan or mulching. Mulching, mulching everybody knows. Mulching you just mention. Favorable to prepare favorable microclimate, mulching is done, right? And Vapasa, moisture. So basically Palekar claims that soils do not really need water but moisture. So there should not be reliance on agriculture. So this kind of method uses 10% water that traditional agriculture uses. So it is water efficient as well. According to Palekar, roots needs water vapors and not really water. So see, it is not possible to explain everything in the exam. I'm just giving you gist of what is the 4 pillars of ZPNF in case the question is getting asked again. And again, to give you test of in how much detail Santosh sir teaches. So I would urge you to again join his classes. They are really, really helpful. Fine. Other features. These are the core features, like 4 pillars. And other features, it doesn't involve any credit. It doesn't spend money on purchased inputs. Uses very less water. Doesn't use any chemical fertilizer special. These are again general things. Nothing complicated here. It is zero budget because there is intercropping done. It is not like you don't have to spend even a single rupee. It is that intercropping is done, and that's why you get more income, compensating you for whatever little you have to spend. So that's why zero budget is getting ensured. Contours, bunds to preserve grain water, local species of earthworm. See, that is there in all kinds of natural farming. Palekar is opposed to vermicomposter. So local earthworms only he focuses on. Local cow dung, the revival of soil earthworms through organic matter. That is recommended. Okay. Now the second part of the question, how it is different from organic farming. See, the basic difference is in organic farming, we use cow dung as a fertilizer. And here we are using it as an inoculum. We are not using here any kind of fertilizer here. We are just spreading this inoculum we prepared in Jivamrut over this entire farmland in very less quantity. Our aim is not to give nutrition to crops. Our aim is to activate soil organisms or other soil enzymes, improve the microclimate of the soil. That is our aim. Our aim here is different. So ZBNF, it is used as inoculum. So cow dung from one cow is adequate for up to 30 acres. See, this is not the case with organic fertilizers. In organic farming, we use cow dung, which is used as a fertilizer. So you need lots and lots of cow dung. That is core difference. Other differences, organic farming still requires other basic inputs. It requires plowing, it's tilling, mixing of manures, weeding. You need all that. In natural farming, no such thing is needed. Natural farming is natural farming. No need to disturb soil in plowing or tilling or anything like that. You just need 4 steps that we discussed. And third is, of course, cost. cost would be again very high in organic farming. That's why only those who have bigger lands can do it at the scale, and organic farming is expensive because it requires all kinds of inputs, and that is not the case with zero budget natural farming, which is a zero budget. There's not much to explain here. Question was direct, and it is not the kind of question which you can manage if you don't know anything, right? I think this is the kind of direct question which if you know, if you know, if you don't, I'm sorry, you should just move on. So, but point to note here is that agriculture is getting asked. So you should revise what you have to revise from GS papers for your GK paper is something to be taken note of. Disaster management is one thing. Another thing here is agriculture and environment. Of course, I mean you will study environment anyway for forest, right? Now the science question. Actually, not science really. Agriculture question is there only, but it is about GM crops. That's why I said science. So, what is genetic modification of crops? One, and how it is done. See the number of questions. We'll just count it. Okay. What is genetic modification? One question. How is it done? Two. How does GM crops differ from conventional prawn breeding? Three. Discuss the environmental impact. See, four questions. You just have 200 words. So there is no room for you to really write introduction or draw diagrams. If you can draw diagrams like this, which are really, I mean, self-explanatory, then it's fine. But otherwise, there's just no space for you. You just have to write whatever you know in these things and just get ahead with it. Because in this answering four questions, you still only have 9 minutes. You don't have a lot of time. So you have to be cognizant of the time as well. So four questions, right? I guess, yeah, I mean, don't think about it as is in points, because what is genetic modification? You just explain it, that is enough, good enough. How is it done? Explain the process, good enough. How is it different from conventional breeding? Explain it. If you know, conceptual clarity is important in answering this third question. And environmental impact, you can write 3-4 points here. So points is only relevant in this last section, not really in the first three sections. First three, you need to have the conceptual clarity only. Fine. Again, point to note, we are getting asked agriculture, we are getting asked technology, and GM is one of the most favorite topics of UPSC, in CSE as well, here as well. Because in CSE mains as well, if you can recall, there was question on biotechnology, right? And in GM crops, if you can give examples, not just in GM crops, anywhere, if you can give examples, you'll have the edge. Fine. What is genetic modification? See, simple. I mean, you must have studied it. I'll just repeat it for the sake of completion. It is technology that involves insertion of DNA into genome of an organism. So you take DNA to produce it, new DNA transferred from plants into plant cell. Example, you can see BT cotton or BT brinjal or anything. If you have 3-4 examples in your hand, it is easy to quote it at different locations. So I'll just enlist it. BT cotton. It is only approved genetically modified crop in India. Then you have BT brinjal. Then you have DMH mustard. You have golden rice. You have GM rubber, which is developed in Northeast. And you have also given, next question is about HTBT cotton. So that is also GM crop, right? These are the examples. You just mention it at different locations in the question while answering. It just tells the examiner that yes, this boy has studied or this girl has studied. No gender discrimination. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. Okay. So here you can give example of, let's say, GM cotton. Usually cells are then grown into tissue culture, where they develop into plants. So this is the transitioning statements between what is genetic modification to how is it done. So how is it done? This is the process basically. Firstly, we isolate a gene which we want to insert. Okay? We take cells, with genetic material, target the gene, we isolate the gene, we insert it with plant tissue, we grow them in a petri dish, see, and we use this as tissue culture. We plant these trees and this plant is grown. This is the next generation plant, genetically modified plant with desired characteristics as we want. This is the process. I mean, this is what is asked, how it is done. So yeah, these steps you can write 1, 2, 3. Fine. If you can draw this diagram, best. If you don't, just write in numbers, no problem at all. This is not a question where you get a lot of time. If you think that drawing figure is more cumbersome, just write in points. Let's go ahead. Okay. I think it is self-explanatory figure. I don't think much is required here in terms of explanation. Fine. Here, okay. How it is different from conventional breeding. So what is conventional breeding? That you should have some idea about. If you have forestry optional, you know it in detail. If you don't, I'll just tell you what conventional breeding is. In conventional breeding, what we do, we basically, if say this is the plant with a clean bole or clean stem, but this is a plant, this is crooked stem, but this is a pest resistant plant. So we breed them together to produce a plant having clean bole and which is pesticide or herbicide pest resistant as well, sir. Yes, okay. And how do we do that? We let's say this is a mother plant. We remove pole anther from here, which is a male genetic material. We remove it. We bag the remaining flower. Okay. Then we take pollen from this plant, put it in the flower. Then the new seed formed will be from pollen of this plant, and mother plant would be this, ovum will be this. The seed will be their hybrid seed, and then we plant that seed and we get the next generation. Okay. So how it is different from conventional breeding? I have mentioned this thing. Okay. So basically, conventional breeding is very cost intensive. In GM, no cost. You can do it in the laboratory. In conventional breeding, you need large area, you need multiple plants, you need multiple generations to do the research, R&D. What kind of traits the resulting seed has or resulting hybrid plant or bred plant has, to analyze that you need that plant to grow for 10-12 years. So cost is more, time is more, area required is more, precision is not there as much as it is in GM, because we are just isolating required genetic material, and from that as well we are just taking required gene. So it is very precise genetically modified crop. Number of generations required, that is also different, because in GM crops, in one single generation we get required result. In plant breeding we may not get. Okay, so we have to breed again, we have to breed first generation, you have to breed again with some other, then you get next generation which may be what you initially wanted. Okay, so these are the differences. I have taken this figure from Google, which is basically enlisting this. Basically you can make the table. In first you will just define what is it, what do you mean by plant breeding, what do you mean by GM crops, or you can even avoid that point. You have already 5 points I have wrote here. You can just write that in tabular form. See, I mean, you can take a note of it. That's the only thing, not much different. And the final part of the answer, how it is, the environmental impact of GM crops. Basically, there is no agreement over such complicated issues within experts or environmentalists. Some say that there is not much impact because see, we are using it for so many years and we have not seen really the impact. But other environmentalists claim that no, that is not so. That is not true, and environmental impact is already severe, and we don't know what kind of impact it would have in future. Unintended consequences could be used. We are playing with the nature, so you can write this statement. So there is no agreement so far. Okay. And there is no agreement so far. Fine. The issue is that one of the key criticisms is about biodiversity. It may harm biodiversity. For example, Briti brinjal, in case of Briti brinjal, there are 3,000 varieties of brinjal that are grown in India naturally. And Briti brinjal could corrupt all of them or replace all of them or destroy all of them, can act as an invasive species to replace them. So all varieties would be contaminated. That is one criticism. Second criticism is about cross pollination, which may lead to strong weeds which are herbicide resistant, because genetically modified crop which are herbicide resistant. So HTBT cotton, for example, which so if it leads to cross breeding with some weeds, they may become herbicide resistant, and that could lead to invasion by weeds as well. Weeding would be difficult. And long-term impact, of course, environmental damage with unintended consequences, and GM cotton has already led to a lot of requirement for water, pesticides, and cost is also increasing. Environmental harm is there also. So these are the three core points: long-term impacts, cross-pollination, and biodiversity. Fine. If you can remember 1-2 more points, you can mention them. You can split one of these points into 2 points just to give an impression that yeah, 4 points every time. So that much you can do because this was a 200 word question. See, again, here we are coming to 125 words question. Ozone is useful only where it belongs. So what is the question? I mean, it is easy to understand, but let me still explain it. There are two kinds of ozone. One is stratospheric ozone, or the ozone layer as we call it, okay? That is there in stratosphere. It protects Earth from sun's harmful rays, right? And then there is tropospheric ozone, that is in the atmosphere. That is that gets created due to pollutants, VOCs, and in sunlight ozone gets created. That is that ozone is actually pollutant and has a lot of harmful impacts. That is the question is asking. Ozone is useful only where it belongs. So where does it belong? It belongs in stratosphere. That's what the question is saying. So another way to understand the question is really where it does not belong, it is harmful, it is not useful. That is the question. So where it does not belong means in atmosphere it is harmful. That's what we have to explain. There is not much complications in it. Ozone is basically you start by writing about ozone. Ozone is there in Earth's upper atmosphere. Ozone can be good or bad depending on where it is found. Generic introduction, nothing crazy about it. Stratospheric ozone or the good ozone, it protects Earth from sun's harmful rays. And the tropospheric ozone that gets created at the ground level, it has harmful effect on health and environment. What are harmful effects on health? What are effects on environment? I have enlisted them. Note them down. Nothing out of the ordinary really. I mean, here again the kind of question, if you know many harmful effects, you will just write it. Just the thing that if you write harmful effects on health, environment, separate them, write 4 points, that is good enough. This is the crux of the answer and not upper thing. Upper thing is just the beginning. Here I have written in one line. In the actual examination on, you write it vertically down so that multiple points can be seen by the examiner. No special points. I mean, coughing, sore throat, breathing difficulty, inflammation, lung diseases will get aggravated. So yeah, really. Environment, photosynthesis, issues in photosynthesis, plants cycles, plants growth would be hindered, risk of diseases would be there. So okay, nothing to explain here or really give any kind of other wisdom. This is just a direct question to direct answer. Okay, let's see the last question of this section, question number 20. herbicide tolerant Bt cotton adds another layer of modification. Elaborate. So HTBt cotton was in news because lot of illegal cultivation of this kind of HTBt cotton is being done in India, and Bt cotton is, as we all know, is approved for cultivation, but HTBt cotton is not, but still it is getting illegally cultivated. So, and that is problematic. It adds another layer of modification. We just have to elaborate it. Okay. So honestly, there's not much to write here. Okay, it adds another layer, means already Bt cotton is modified once. It is once more modified, so it adds another layer of modification. That is all. I mean, even if you think about it, what more can you write about it? But you still have to write 125 words about it. So you have to write about Bt cotton only here. So half a page I'll recommend write about Bt cotton, and something about HTBT specific points. If you write, you'll get, I believe, some more marks. Other than that, there's nothing more to really add here. You don't know much about the question. See, you only have 1 point here. So that's the only kind of trick or wisdom I can give you, that write about Bt cotton before you come to HTBT cotton, so that at least you fill one or little more than 1 page. Okay, fine. And yeah, I knew this because Santosh sir has discussed this in his classes, again, which tells you that attending one class of Santosh sir helps you in GK paper, in GS paper, in current affairs, in multiple ways which you may not even have imagined. Little advertisement from my side, but it is true, it is not advertisement. I'm not exaggerating things. I have been a student for long now. So okay, fine. HTBT cotton adds another layer of medical. So BT cotton, you can write about it, right? It is a transgenic crop that has been approved by Center for Commercial Cultivation. It is the only crop that has been approved. You can write about it. It is genetically modified to produce insecticide to combat this bollworm or cotton bollworm. This is a common insecticide. To combat it, it was modified. This from Bacillus thuringiensis, this bacteria, genes from it were taken. They were introduced into cotton crop and it was inserted into cotton crop, and it adds one layer of modification. HTBT cotton variant adds another layer, making the plant resistant to this herbicide glyphosate. Glyphosate is this. It is one herbicide. So this modification in making BT cotton into herbicide tolerant cotton. So there was already one layer. We add another layer, making it resistant to herbicide glyphosate, but has not been approved by regulator. But it is still being cultivated illegally. That you can mention in the conclusion or in the beginning, so that examiner knows that yes, you have read the news. You know why the question is being asked. It gives you some more marks over the others, and that is all the fight is about. Okay, some, I mean 1, not more than that, but still every mark matters. Now let me come to final and most unpredictable part of this entire forest paper, forest GK paper rather, is about science and technology. See, every year 1 or 2 questions are getting asked which you cannot predict, which we don't study in any of the classes materials of civil services examination. Even Santosh sir has not covered many of these things which we are getting asked. Many of these things are there, but many of things are not covered. That's why this paper is little more, this section is little more challenging. But remember, this is not challenging just for you, it is challenging for everyone. Nobody knows this. I mean, I assure you, I have talked to many people, nobody knows this. They just write whatever they know or whatever they have heard about it. But that does not work, right? Examiner is not a stupid person. He's a smart guy. He knows the answer. So you cannot fool him with writing anything you know. That's just not going to work. So what is the solution? Solution is you try to predict what could be asked. you try to prepare it, you try to be inquisitive about whatever that is happening around you in the science and technology world. But beyond that, if you get a question which you don't know answer to, please don't try to attempt it. Leave it, no problem. Attempt all those questions which you know very well, so well that marks you get in those questions should compensate everything else. If you don't attempt one or two questions, it does not really dent your marks that much, because you were anyway not going to get more than 1 mark in those things, and 1 mark also if the examiner is feeling particularly uh, you know kind that day. So it is really not a good strategy to compulsively write every question even if you don't know about it, because this is science and technology. What are you going to write if you don't know? Please understand this. If you know something you can write it, but yeah, again, be smart about it. So I have highlighted the questions that are getting asked. This is 2017, 18, 19, 20 and 21. We are discussing it below. See, first, uses of drones, very easy, you can attempt it. Gravitational waves, very specific question, not something you would be able to write a lot about. You have only heard about it, but it was getting discussed so much that UPSC expects you to be inquisitive about it and find out a little more about it. That's all. So gravitational wave, digital signature, again in news. Robotarium, again not a question which you would be prepared about. Liquid crystals applications, no, you can't prepare for this. But it is there in NCERT, I believe. Laser and starlight, what is the difference between them? Then neurocomputing, Chandrayaan 2 you can easily attempt. Polymer and polymer, degree of polymerization, this is there in chemistry part of NCERT. Bose-Einstein condensate, again getting discussed everywhere. It is there in physics of NCERT. This is squid, again in current news they have asked it. I mean, very random questions. Working of quantum computing, very relevant, you should know about it, because last year government has launched quantum mission. So this is again a relevant question for CSE as well. Then this working of GPS, getting discussed very commonly in so Santosh sir discusses it often. So you must be knowing that there is principle of triangulation. MRI, so there was this question, why is MRI better than CT scan? So this question is very specific. If you are not inquisitive about MRIs, you won't know the answer. So what are you going to fake it? Full form question asked, full form of MRI and how is it better? Full form of MRI you may be knowing, at least I did know. But yeah, I mean, hydrogen energy, that thing you can do. A Large Hadron Collider and Higgs boson. So these are specific questions related to science. They ask you to be inquisitive about science and technology and go into little bit depth as a person who is generally aware would go. And on that basis, I had enlisted some more important topics I thought would be important for this year. None of it came, but that's okay. And Gaganyaan, I thought 5G technology, blockchain technology, Bose-Einstein statistics, which was asked in CSE mains as well, quantum computing mission as well. None of the question came, but that's okay. So now we'll discuss the questions which actually were asked this year. Okay. Fine. Look at this question and tell me if you don't know about this question, can you really attempt it? I mean, don't fool yourself. Don't fool the examiner. The examiner is very smart. At least I thought that I should not attempt it because I did not know anything about it. Which year was declared by the UN General Assembly as the International Year of Light, and why? Fine. This is a 15 marker, 200 words. I know it is very difficult to leave 15 markers. It is not easy to take that decision. But if you don't know anything about when was this year declared, do you know about it? No, at least I did not. I mean, and everybody I met also did not know about it. So understand this as well, that this is a competitive examination. Nobody would know this. It's okay to leave one question if nobody knows this. Anyway, if you don't know, you are not going to get marks here by writing anything you want. They need this year, they need this particular year. When was it declared? Do you know? If yes, then great. If you don't, calm down, don't worry. Go to polity section, do that very well. Or polity, economics, history. I mean, whatever you know, do that very well. Or the questions like the soil erosion one, which you discussed, you should write that. You should do that in very methodical manner. That you can do. Okay, fine. So basically, it was in 2015 when International Year of Light-Based Technologies was declared. I did not know it. Why was it declared that? So again, this question is little bit confusing because this question why is not asked. What not? It is not specified. What is being asked? They are saying that. Are they asking that why was 2015 the year chosen? That is one interpretation. Or what were the objectives of declaring? That is the second interpretation. You can write both since this is a 15 marker. But actually, if you take that interpretation, that why was International Year of Light declared? I mean, what was the purpose or what were the objectives of declaring that? Then you can write it. See, I mean, this is general things. Light plays central role to human activities. It is essential part of culture and art and unifying symbol. Photosynthesis, it is necessary to existence. So many things. So industries, medicine, communication, entertainment. In all these industries, it is important. Access to information, sustainable development. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things you can write general things about right in introduction. So why was it declared? So what was the objective? To raise awareness about achievements of light science and its application, its importance to humankind. Or other objectives, what could be other objectives of such kind of initiative? Any year, if the year of X is getting declared, what would be objective? To spread awareness about X, to educate, promote education, promote international cooperation, research between NGOs, societies, governments, agencies, educational establishment, industry, etc., etc., and emphasize its importance of basic research that could be there, and need for investment. So these are the things you can write. Okay, so if you think rationally for some time, you may come up with these points, and I believe this is the thing you can do. And this particular time I left it completely blank, but if you want, you can straight away comes to why was it declared. So what were the objectives of declaring, that you can write. These are the objectives, which is very general. I mean, that you can guess what could be the objectives. So, and why 2015 was chosen? That is the second interpretation of the question, which as I said, because there were a lot of anniversaries related to light in 2015, and I have enlisted them. Most important is Einstein's general theory of relativity, Maxwell's theory of light, Fresnel's theory. So these were some of the things. That's why it was 2015 was chosen as a year of light and not any other year. But see, this is the kind of question which uh, even if you write even objectives of year of light, you may get 2-3 marks, which is good enough, I believe. So if you can think rationally, you can come up with that. But if you can't come up with that as well, it is okay to leave it. You can get those extra 2-3 marks using these 9 minutes somewhere else. Fine. That was about that question. Again, this was a very good question. Okay, and again, little bit opportunity for me to promote LevelUp IAS. How can nuclear technology be used for power generation? Fine. What is the here also it is important to understand the question. They are asking you to how is nuclear technology used. They are not asking its pros and cons of nuclear technology. That is not getting asked. So you know that there are two reactions: nuclear fission, nuclear fusion. Okay. These are by these two reactions we actually get energy. But how? What is the mechanism behind it? So what is happening here is that, see, in nuclear fission, one big nucleus is getting split into two. When we bombard the big nucleus with, let's say, neutron, so this example of nuclear fusion, one neutron plus uranium 235, get split into barium plus krypton plus 3 neutrons plus some energy. This is the energy we get as a nuclear energy. But how? Why is this happening? So when this nucleus is getting split, when the LHS, you see, on the left hand side of the reaction, you have one uranium nucleus and one neutron. So this is some mass of these two things combined. Okay. So and when these two things split, we get barium, we get krypton, and we get 3 neutrons. Mass of these three things is little bit less than mass of one neutron plus uranium. So where is the extra, where is the mass gone? I mean, mass can't just vanish. So that mass becomes energy as per very famous equations of Einstein. E is equal to mc square. This is the mass that is lost in this reaction. This is speed of light ka square, and this is the energy we get as a nuclear energy. So this is the answer to this question. How is the mass, how can nuclear technology be used for power generation? How can it be used? Using nuclear fission or nuclear fusion as per Einstein equation of energy mass equivalence, which is this equation, E equal to mc square. When this reaction happens, some mass is lost, that is converted into energy. So so that is I would suggest you can write this in introduction as per this equivalence. Mass is converted into energy. And you can then write about convert answer into two parts. First is about nuclear fission. You can write what is fission. So when bigger nucleus splits, right? You can give example of this uranium 235 fission. And then second part, you can write about nuclear fusion when 4 hydrogen atoms split into helium atom and energy. 4 hydrogen 1 becomes helium 4 plus energy. This is example of nuclear fusion. This is the reaction that happens at the core of stars like sun, right? And this energy, where does it come from? Again, loss of mass, which you can see here, right? So this is the answer of this question. If you write this very well, I think you can get very good marks. And in conclusion, you can write about, see, this nuclear fusion is not something we have yet achieved at normal temperatures. We have not yet gotten surplus energy because it requires a lot of energy to merge this hydrogen. So it is still work in progress, but it is hoped that this kind of fusion reaction would may solve all our energy problems in the future. That is the hope, and a lot of research is going on here. You can quote International Thermonuclear Experiment as well, which India is a part of. Fine. And yes, Santosh sir had covered it in his classes in detail. He teaches science and technology very exhaustively. That's why I knew the answer. And one more reason for you to join LevelUp IAS, Santosh's current affairs program in particular. Okay, let me come to second last question. World community has a reservation about India's satellite vehicle program, satellite launching vehicles. They think that it can be converted very easily to carry nuclear warheads, right? So how will you argue for India to dispel these fears? This is very open-ended question. I mean, you cannot prepare this for this question, can you? I mean, really you think about it? No, you can't prepare for this question, but it is not really difficult question. So you just have to argue for India to dispel these fears. So these are fears. So how would you do that? Just think about it rationally. But I would suggest that don't stick to one argument. Have 2-3 arguments. Fine. So I have enlisted what I wrote. Firstly, any technology you can start. I started with this quote. Okay, you can use this quote in technology essays. It's very useful quote. Technology doesn't solve a problem without creating 10 more. This is due to George Bernard Shaw. This is very useful quote in essays, any technological essays. When you want to write about negative sides of technology, you can quote this and start. So this is there, okay. So technology doesn't solve any problem without creating 10 more. So any technology can be used negatively or positively. So there are many dual use technologies, like let's say nanotechnology. It is a general purpose technology. It can be used in a lot of negative ways. So does that mean that we stop our technological development? No. So it is not really relevant that who has the technology. It is relevant that who uses it. So if you look at the India's track record of peaceful civilization, India's track record, impeccable record of non-interference, of nuclear non-proliferation, world really has recorded UN peacekeeping forces, or even India's role in COVID times. You can quote that. So it's not about who wields the technology; it's about who uses it and how it is regulated. Secondly, India already has no first use policy. India is already a peaceful power. India is a peaceful civilization. India is a democracy. All these points, it should be enough to convince the world that yes, it is possible to convert these into warheads, but India has no intention to do that, and India's space program has always been about utilitarian vision. Even you can quote Vikram Sarabhai on this, that he was the one who believed that space for the common man was the vision for India, vision from India from the beginning. And even when we went nuclear, it was due to compulsion and not because we wanted to somehow project power or something like that. So you can say that. If you can recall any other argument, you can mention them. Okay. And the last question. This is again very relevant question for civil service mains as well. It was kind of a tricky question if you really get emotional about it. You just have to be very rational here, right? The question was, name two Indians who have won Bharat Ratna for their contributions to the field of science and technology, one, and write briefly about their work. So far, only three scientists have got Bharat Ratna. Fine. One is Sir C.V. Raman, second is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, and lastly, Dr. C.N.R. Rao. Only three. So you can get confused, because if you think that Dr. Vikram Sarabhai has Bharat Ratna, he does not, sorry. Or Dr. Homi Bhabha, I'm sorry, he also does not. And it is really sad, and we should really honor them. But yeah, as of now, they don't have Bharat Ratna. We should, Government of India should, I would say, posthumously award them. But so far, Vikram Sarabhai has Padma Vibhushan, and Dr. Homi Bhabha has Padma Bhushan to his name. Okay, but okay, that's not relevant argument here. So if you think that, if you get sucked into the belief that Vikram Sarabhai would be one of the names, no, sorry, he has not yet won Bharat Ratna. So in examination, I have mentioned these two names. Sir C.V. Raman, as you know, one of the first, not one of the first one to get Nobel, Bharat Ratna. He was, of course, Nobel awardee. For Raman effect, he got 1939 Nobel Prize, he won. And Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and C.N.R. Rao, three people are there. See, in civil services mains, there was a similar question on writing the contributions of M.S. Swaminathan and M. Vishwesvaraya, Sir M. Vishwesvaraya, in their respective fields. So this kind of question could be asked. So yeah, what is the contribution of Sir C.V. Raman? First is about Raman effect, that is very popular, or the scattering as we call it. So it talks about when the light is incident on any material. Let's see. So this is, let's say, any material, molecules of material, okay, and the light is incident on it. Most of it, let's say, this transparent material, most of it would get pass would pass through it. Some of it would be reflected. And Raman effect says that wavelength of this reflected rays is almost same. All of these waves, some of the waves of this reflected mark have different wavelength from the incident one. Almost most of it has same, but some of it is different wavelength. And that pattern, that's how what percentage is different, differs from material to material. That is the Raman scattering effect, and it has many applications from identifying purity of drugs to many other fields as well, including identifying what is the let's say there is some skin growth on your skin. So what kind of material is that? So medical field also there are applications. You should read more about its application. But here Raman effect, that was enough. It is about change in wavelength of light that occurs when the light is deflected by molecules. So as I said, light is deflected. That change of wavelength that is there in scattering. That Raman effect explains that. Okay. Second is C.V. Raman was the first to explain sky is blue. Why is the sky blue? There's a story that he was sitting on the Mediterranean Ocean shore, and it was believed that sea is blue because the reflection of sky is getting reflected. That is why ocean is blue or sea is blue. But C.V. Raman was the first one to really explain the correct reason for it, which is that other frequencies or wavelengths are getting absorbed and only blue is getting reflected. That was the reason. Third is Raman-Nath effect or the acousto-optic effect. That is his theory. He gave the correct explanation of this acousto-optic effect. Acousto-optic effect is basically, it studies how sound waves and light waves interact with each other. So when due to mechanical properties of sound wave, refractive index of the material gets affected, and that is explained in his Raman-Nath theory. We don't have to get into much detail. See, I am not a physics student. I just read it. That's enough for us for the GS paper. And he again another thing is he established Indian Academy of Science and Raman Research Institute as well. 3-4 points enough for C.V. Raman. 3-4 points for Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. As you can see, the Pokhran test there. He was the architect of it. He was the missile man of India, director of DRDO. He was the director of SLV-3 program, short satellite launch vehicle 3. I mean, and then he was director of DRDO. And these two, you can remember that there is this contribution of Dr. Kalam as well with cardiologist Dr. Soma Raju. He has developed this Kalam Raju stent, which is affordable heart stent. Okay, and this Kalam Raju tablet for ground workers. Tablet is basically our computer tablet, which is also affordable and usable for ground workers on healthcare workers as for. So these two are also something which you can mention. And finally, Sir C.N.R. Rao, he was the Indian chemist, and he has won every award possible in chemistry except the Nobel Prize. And he was given Bharat Ratna in 2012, I think. And after that, no scientist has won the Bharat Ratna or awarded the Bharat Ratna rather. And I've mentioned about his work. You can read about it. Solid state and structural chemistry. Again, he has honorary doctorate from 83 universities. You can imagine. Solid state and material chemistry was. So yeah, fine. Here we are done with the discussion of all the questions that were asked in this year's Forest Services GK. Overall, what you can see is that there are 24 questions, out of which generally 2-3 questions you may not know much about. So in effect, you have 22 questions to write, and if you really apply your mind, they are not that difficult. There is a pattern to all the questions which I already highlighted wherever I could. And see, so Forest Service GK paper is an important paper. See, it is a 300 marks paper, unlike the 250 we have in GS, and 300 out of 1400 matters a lot. We can get 100 marks, as well as we can get 140, 145 marks, which create 40 marks gap, which is huge in competitive examination like CSE or IFS mains. So I would urge you to put a little bit extra effort in GK paper. The tendency is that after CSE mains, we get so much exhausted because of incredible hard work and the grueling process of CSE mains, that forest mains we tend to ignore the GK paper. Also because there are two optionals to prepare, and most of us have one or two optionals which we have not touched for long. So it also pushes GK in the background. But considering the relative importance of GK paper, I would urge you to put a little bit extra effort, not a lot, but it is really rewarding, I believe. It is not as difficult as CSE GS papers, but it is rewarding. And as a forest service, it is one of the all India services, and if the GS paper carries so much weightage, GK paper carries so much weightage, you should focus on it as well, along with English paper. Relevant strategies for English paper, I mean, I would discuss it in the short video, but in essence, you cannot ignore it, and you cannot assume that you will do well in both these papers without studying much. It is not so. It is a competitive examination. It is an UPSC examination. So it is not as easy as it seems. It is not as uncompetitive as it seems. There is a lot of competition, and it is required that you put a little bit extra effort, as we saw in the discussion of this paper. I hope it was helpful, and you can reach out if you require any help or have any doubts. Thank you.